Yes, adequate notice of this meeting of the Township Committee was given as required by the Open Public Meetings Act as follows. Notice was given to both the Chatham Courier and the Morris County Daily Record on January 4th, 2019. Notice was posted on the bulletin board in the main hallway of the municipal building on January 4th, 2019. And notice was filed with the Township Clerk on January 4th, 2019.
Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Greg, if you do the roll call, with notice that Mayor Typhoon Salen is here via telephone.
Mrs. Ness?
Here.
Mrs. Schwartz?
Here.
I got a message from Mr. Ritter that he's on his way, he's stuck on the train. Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Here.
And Mayor Salen by phone? Here.
Thank you, Greg.
We have more.
Thank you. Do I have the approval of the agenda?
So moved.
I'll second it. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Very good. Okay, our first order of business tonight is the oath of office for Sergeant Anthony Laporta. Always a pleasure. So let me begin with a little introductory remarks here, if I may, about Anthony's history. Sergeant Anthony Laporta started as a patrolman with the Chatham Township Police in 2011. Prior to his employment with Chatham Township PD, he was a patrolman in the Riverdale Police Department, served 4 years in the U.S. Navy, where he was stationed in Pearl Harbor, Hawaii, aboard the USS Santa Fe, and then served 1 year in the active reserves. During his tenure with the Chatham Township Police Department, he was assigned to the Detective Bureau from 2016 until July of 2019. In addition, Anthony is currently the Township's Humane Law Enforcement Officer and investigates all reported animal abuse and neglect complaints. Anthony is a certified police physical fitness instructor, and he assists the Morris County Police Academy in training police recruits. He is also a police in-service instructor at the Police Academy and is the Chatham Township Police Department's radar instructor and chemical defense instructor. Sergeant Anthony Laporta will be assigned as a supervisor in the patrol division. So it's my pleasure to ask Anthony and his family to come up and accept the oath of office. Thank you. Congratulations. Hey, buddy. Hey, guys. Hold this for me. All right. Come here. You hold the book this way. Turn around. There you go. Oh, very good. Up. There we go. Okay. Thank you. If you'd repeat after me.
Sure.
I, Anthony Laporta,
I, Anthony Loporto,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
that I will support the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and the Constitution of the State of New Jersey,
and that I will bear true faith
and that I will bear true faith
and allegiance to the same
and allegiance to the same
and to the governments established in the United States
and to the governments established in the United States
and in this state under
And-
the authority of the people.
and in this state under the authority of the people.
I do further solemnly swear
I do further solemnly swear
that I will faithfully,
that I will faithfully,
impartially,
impartially,
and justly perform
and justly perform
all the duties of the office of Police Sergeant
all the duties of the office of Police Sergeant
according to the best of my ability.
according to the best of my ability.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Chief, would you like to come up with the photograph? Minnie? Come down.
Okay. There you go. All right, little boy.
Next on the agenda are reports. Karen, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mike. Couple of things, please, everybody understand our senior center is going on vacation for 2 weeks, beginning tomorrow, the 19th. Is tomorrow the 19th already? No. Well, they will not be open on Monday, let's put it that way. And they'll be closed until September 4th, so we hope everybody enjoys their summer vacation. For the senior center, they'll be back up in action on September 4th. Please visit the website for some important dates that'll be coming up. DPW, believe it or not, getting ready for fall sports already because it's August. Our high school sports teams and all of our Board of Rec teams and our club teams for fall sports will be getting underway before long. So they will be working on that. John, I know we'll be getting a paving schedule a little bit. We'll be talking about paving a little bit further on today. We have seen tree removal lately from JCP&L. Of course, there are many more trees left to come down as they combat the emerald ash borer. If you have any questions, we all here are eager to help walk residents through the process if they have trees that are presently being marked for removal due to the emerald ash borer. And that is pretty much what I have.
Thank you. Tracy?
Yes, the Environmental Commission met, and please mark your calendars for the Sustainability Fair, which is going to be taking place from 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. on September 14th. The Environmental Commission has been working with ShopRite to provide reusable vegetable bags as part of the effort to move towards less use of plastics. They'll also be presenting the plastic bag ordinance as part of the Sustainable Coalition at our meeting in September. I understand that Harding and Chatham Borough has just recently had their first discussions on this topic. So we'll look forward to that in September. Rolling Knolls, the Community Advisory Group met, and not surprisingly, with the way the wheels of all the different departments involved move, it's probably not going to be any more information on the remedial action or the feasibility study will be coming up, certainly not by the end of the year, and maybe not until well into next year. The Communications Committee met. We submitted a draft of our internal document to the kind of working committee. The chief was able to update some of the things for Act Now. And we're still waiting, Mike, I believe, for the OEM communications portion of it.
Yes.
And we're also waiting for Tom Salvis. He's reviewing the cable TV portion of it to make sure that we're up to date because some of the things have changed over the past 5 years. We expect to have a draft for the committee to review in September. Colony Pool met. Big thank you to the police department, to the fire department, both Chatham Township and Green Village, for putting on a terrific night, which was the National Night Out on August 6th. We held a National Night Out at Colony Pool. We had a demonstration from the Morris County Canine Unit, which was a little frightening, I will say. You never want to get on that end of a mad dog coming at you. It was really very interesting how well trained the dogs are and how well trained the trainers are. So that was very interesting. We had a helicopter flyby. We had McGruff, the crime dog, and we also had a visit from our Congresswoman Mikey Sherrill, who thanked the police, the firefighters, and first responders for all of their dedication and hard work. So it was quite a memorable night. And then we headed over to Green Village, and they had quite a spread over there, and a lot of people attended, so that was really great to see. So thank you to all of our first responders, fire departments, and our police department for putting on a great evening. Colony Pool has not met, but we do have some updated membership numbers. Bob, did you want to cover that in your report, or did you want me to cover that? Okay. To switch to one of my 6 folders I've got going on here.
Here's the updated, this column, and then I'll send that out to the township.
We have, year over year, 393 total members versus the 2018 membership of 363 members. And we have 117 new members that were not members of NOE in 2018, that were not members of Colony in 2018. They may have been previous members, but they were new to Colony this year. Whether they came back because of the reduced rates, we don't know that. So we continue to increase the membership by a nice amount. We're up about 31 year over year. And we're hoping to end the year with a bang. We're hoping that the good weather continues. The staff there report increased activity and increased guests, and are very pleased with how the season has gone so far. And that's it.
Thank you, Tracy. Typhoon, anything to report?
And I want to congratulate Anthony, and he's a great person, great officer, and he has a great family. He's going to be a great sergeant, and it's a win for him. It's not only a win for him, it's a win for Chatham Township Police Department, as well as Chatham Township government, and more importantly, and maybe the most importantly, the people of Chatham Township. It's a win for all of us, and congratulations to Anthony. That's about it, Mike.
Thank you, Mayor. John, anything as engineer?
Yeah, just report on the paving schedule. Currently, we're proposing to use the Morris County Co-op, and we've been frequently contacting the contractor, trying to get him in as soon as possible. Unfortunately, there is a lot of demand for July, August, and everyone wants paving during that time frame. So unfortunately, it is we're looking at late August, most likely early September to do the paving. And if that's the case, we've done paving in September before, and we coordinate with the schools, and we coordinate with the contractor regarding, deferring his times and such to minimize impacts. But we'll work around that schedule. But the more and more I'm getting the feel that it probably is going to be pushed to early September. Well, as soon as we get firm dates, we always, we'll get the notification out. We'll put posts on the website as we do in the past, and get the notices out.
John, we had discussions with PSE&G, had talked about putting a new gas main in under Lenape Trail. They're not going to do that.
Yeah, PSE&D was a bit of a fly in the ointment,
Right.
Because first they had on Lenape they did have an outstanding road opening permit to replace some services, and I was also pushing them to get that work done complete, and ultimately they decided to postpone it, and I just recently revoked that permit, so there's no misunderstanding that if we pave and they come back, so that permit was revoked. But besides that, they also indicated that they were thinking of actually doing more roads, replacing the mains on Lenape, Yarmouth, and others. And so we were, at one point, we were talking about delaying that entire neighborhood because they were thinking of coming in and replacing all the mains and services. But they decided that they did their risk analysis, and there's still a few years off before
Right.
that would come to the schedule. And so they felt they didn't need to expedite that work. The mains are safe, and so they're going to push that off into a few years out.
I don't think we can overemphasize the importance of making sure our lines of communication are open
Oh,
between our
absolutely.
utilities and
Yeah,
the guys who are
absolutely.
digging around town and the projects that we ourselves are spending taxpayer money on.
We do. We keep in touch because one of the primary reasons why the roads deteriorate is the utility work, the repairs that go in and replacements. They open the road, they break the seal, and we get a lot of deterioration. So we try to coordinate with them so that if they have upgrades to they do it before we pave. And we have a 5-year moratorium, and I remind them every time, don't call us until 5 years because we don't want you touching the road. Obviously, if there's an emergency, they have to fix something. But, we do want to, I do push them, want them to respect that 5-year moratorium, that we do not want any work within that time.
Right. I swear not a week goes by where I don't hear about the dreadful conditions of the road leading to our town compost and recycling center.
That will be paved.
Thank goodness. Do you that's going to be done in the same time, late August, September?
Correct.
Okay.
Once the contractor comes in, he stays in and does everything. So
Okay.
Once we get him in town, we keep him.
I swear, not a week goes by. People don't make a trip down on
Yeah,
Saturday
it's-
without letting
it's
me
on-
know
it's
how
on the
bad that
top.
road is. I know. Thank you, John.
Thank you, John. Albert, anything to report? Bob, anything?
Bob, can I ask you, would you kindly speak into the mic? I've heard from folks at home that they want to hear more of what you have to say.
Thank you. So they want to hear my monotone voice.
They want to hear every last syllable.
Thank you.
Okay.
I have no specific report. I just have, there are reports that are on the agenda that I
We'll take one at a time. Okay, very good. Thank you very much. And with that being said, we do have, the next items on the agenda are reports from Bob. So it starts off with the 2019 budget update.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. This is the budget update that I will provide is a little more extensive than the abbreviated one from the July meeting. If you recall, the July meeting tested our flexibility because we had a power failure. So the township engineer and I were able to start the generator. I will say that it was mostly the township engineer because I put the keys in the wrong lock. But to get back to what we need to focus on July 17th, the Finance Committee met with myself and the CFO so that we could go over the June 30th reports. I always like to look at the variances and then do a condition and position analysis. So what was discussed at that meeting was that overall we are on target. We should, overall our budget should be at approximately 50% for that time frame. We had sufficient funds encumbered for all of our contracts, and we were on target with our operational expenses. I was looking at variances, and towards November and December, we may be looking at some budget transfers that are going to be related to increased recycling costs for the township. And there's an analysis that we have to do because late last week or early this week, we received a letter requesting additional information, but it looks like it's additional information for... Okay, is that on? Thank you, Alex. It should be for additional, they're looking for additional payments to us for taxes, and I don't understand that, but we will go through the contract and see if that's something that's an expense that we should be paying, or is that an expense that we should be fighting. But our recycling costs have been going up because of the lack of recycling centers willing to take material. We also will have some additional expenses related to our affordable housing obligations. Those are something that had not been initially budgeted for, but there are some expenses that, that have been ordered by the court, and we will abide by the court's ruling, but there are some things that we have to do, and there might be some expenses that are related to that will require a transfer, and that's related to different fees for planning, for attorneys, things of that nature. But it's all things that are mandated, and we also had some expenses for police vehicles, repairs for police vehicles, but that should be something that we would be able to handle. Our rateable base. We are one of the fortunate communities in the state. Our rateable base increases each year because we have a diligent tax assessor, and we are a desirable community. So our rateable base will increase in 2019. It will probably increase at a smaller percentage than it has in the previous few years, but we're looking at, in 2020, we're looking at an acceleration in our rateable base that will increase more than in 2019. The reason for that is right now we have 44 building permits or new housing permits that are open, and the goal of the township is always to provide prompt inspections and then to get the new houses online as soon as possible. We have 13 houses that have been fully closed and will be online, and we have others that are in the queue, approximately 31 others that are in the queue, and I am not sure that how many we will be able to close out before the end of the year. So if they're not closed out before the end of the year, our rateable base will not meet our projections, but then the rateable base for 2020 will exceed our projections because we're going to have this, we're going to have a percentage of those 31 that weren't completed in 2019, they'll be completed in 2020. The township will hear from me, the committee will hear from me later on about implementing a financial plan or a financial policy going forward for the future that will give a little more emphasis to the township's policy for surplus, because we have a policy to make sure that we reserve surplus so that we can use it for capital improvements, also that we can use it for emergencies, but then we take a percentage of the surplus, usually 10 to 15%, and we apply that so that the tax rate is able to be maintained at a steady level. What the township will be asked to consider is taking that and going one step further and looking at 6 different components, which I will go into, to make sure that over the long term we're able to protect our AAA credit rating, but it will also help us I want to be able to recommend that we do 40-year projections on our capital expenses, because we have the sewer treatment plant where we're going to be spending a significant amount of money to upgrade those machineries and other pieces of equipment that are in there. But if we plan ahead, we will be able to slowly each year budget and put aside funds so that the next time we have to make replacements or we have to expand the system, we will have funds available and we will not have to go out and borrow as much money as we might have to in the future. And it will also help protect us against interest rate variations, because interest rates are good now, but we need to look ahead, because we went through 2002, 2007, and 2008 when we had the dot-com bubble, and there were things that the former township elected officials and administrator and professionals had to do to make sure that we protected the assets of the township. So this financial plan, which the township committee will be asked to consider and hopefully adopt, will help us quantify and embed, sound financial principles going forward. So, and that will help with the continuity, as people change in departments and in other locations. Our surplus projections, looking at our surplus projections, we are going to be able to lapse $532,571 into surplus from our 2017 budget. So what happens is, at the end of 2017, the funds that weren't spent go into a reserve account in case there are any bills that are coming up and are submitted late. After those bills have been paid, the funds that remain can be lapsed into surplus. So we have $532,571 that'll go into that. That's slightly more than was lapsed into surplus the year before. We had done we did about $495,000 the year before. So it's right around the same percentage. So that's something that's good. We're also have done an analysis of our long-term debt and what's the feasibility of paying the debt off, some of the debt off earlier. Will that save us interest? Will that save interest payments for our residents going down the road? So that's something that will come up to the Township Committee. We will have some information about that during the budget process for 2020. Our IT bid specs and cybersecurity issues have been done in draft form into a request for proposal, so we'll be going out to bid for that. That is related to our financial system, so we want to make sure that we're able to upgrade all of our licenses and take care of the needs that we have for the township going forward. We will start our 2020 budget process in October, and we will look at all of the factors that are involved in making sure that our township runs effectively and efficiently. And basically, that's my report on the 2019 budget update.
Thank you, Bob. That's kind of the nuts and bolts of what makes the township run smoothly, so appreciate it.
Bob, I just have a question. With regards to recycling, now that we're all in this mess all across the country, have we spoken to Morris County about what they're doing with the utility authority or what steps they may be taking to help offset these costs? I know we have our contract coming up, our contract renewal with them coming up, but is there anything being taken on at the county level since this affects every single town?
We have not specifically spoken to Morris County about that. There is going to be a meeting coming up where there will be several administrators and managers that will be speaking with the county, but we have not had a specific one-on-one with the county about that. The county will be stepping up their enforcement efforts for recycling. They will be, they have their advertised looks at recycling, and then they will be doing some, and this is my terminology, some unannounced looking at recycling, and they will be reporting back to the county and then to, as I understand it, to the municipalities directly. Does that answer the question?
Yeah, I was just hoping there might be some sort of kind of regional roundtable with all of the towns in Morris County to kind of, since we're all in the same boat, to see if we could figure out something that would be an economy of scale or how to better use the MUA, because we're in a pickle.
Yep.
And we
Yeah,
could use
many
some regional guidance.
Yeah. Yes, all of our municipalities here in the state of New Jersey are in the same bind, and we're looking around the country. I've talked to several colleagues in other states, particularly Maryland, where they seem to be having significant cost increases, and I'm following how they're dealing with that.
Does it even pay to recycle these days?
For some, it depends on how you define does it pay for it. There are, recycling is a commodity. There is a market for some of the material, but there's not enough market for all of the material that's being recycled. The other issue is the contamination of the material that's being put into our recycling bins. So we can't recycle pizza boxes, and people are doing that. And there's I guess Morris County and others are now using the slogan, "When in doubt, throw it out," because people have erred on the side of caution when they don't know whether to recycle it or not. They're recycling it, so they're not familiar with the numbers of the plastics, and so they just recycle everything. But in the long run, that's contaminating the recycling material. So.
Well, we've spoken about the fact that the chargebacks from Morris County to us are not because of contamination per se, but the value of what we are attempting to pass on to purchasers of recycling goods is what's plummeted. So everything that we're collecting, even if we were 100% diligent in doing the right thing in our collections, it would still be a drag on the price that we're paying or the charges that are being sent back to us.
Yes, but right now, the cost to dispose of recycling is still less than the cost of disposing of solid waste. So it's it's getting closer, but right now it still costs more to put something in a landfill than it does to recycle. But what we're facing is we have a glut of material that's just being stored,
Right.
recycled material that's just being stored, and we don't know what the where that recycling will ultimately wind up.
Well, that was based on the idea that somebody was going to be buying it from us. And even if they're buying it, these things at a vastly reduced rate than what we were projected to be receiving.
Correct.
Right.
And there's no fine for throwing stuff out.
Well, actually, the
Otherwise,
carriers will get fined. So if our private garbage collectors show up at their depot, whatever you call it, when they bring their regular garbage collections in, if they do spot checks and find out that they are actually throwing into the waste stream an egregious amount of recyclable material, they could get fined.
So I guess
That's
the
my
question is, what is
understanding.
egregious?
Yeah, exactly. But if all of a sudden people start throwing out recyclables in big numbers, then it's going to end up in the waste stream, and there's a possibility that our private carters will get fined because they are now putting recyclables into the waste stream. And I think this is one of the dangers of the tag it and leave it tack that Morris County MUA will be taking. They're going to leave a whole load behind if you leave something at the curb that shows dramatic content of non-recyclables. So if you're throwing your recycling out in plastic bags, if you're throwing out red Solo cups, if you're recycling these, and all of a sudden you just decide, forget it, I'm throwing the whole load into the trash tomorrow.
That's what's going to happen.
Right.
Does he leave it on the curb and
Leave it on the
regular guy will
curb
come
for
by
your
and pick it up?
private carter to come
Yeah.
get it, and then his numbers of throwing recyclables into the waste stream are going to go up, and then he's going to face possible fines for flying in the face of our recycling laws. So somebody's going to be picking
When in
up.
doubt, throw it out.
When in doubt, throw it out and let somebody else pay the fine, I guess.
Well, I think the ultimate answer, at least a component of it, is education.
Well, they have to do it right, exactly.
And if I'm hearing Bob correctly, if it costs more per ton to throw it in the landfill than it does to recycle it, then while it may not be called a fine, then there is a financial penalty for throwing up our arms and
Right.
just
But we're
throwing
talking
everything
about,
in the
we're
trash.
talking about apples and oranges in this case, because if they tag it and leave it, they're going to tag your container full. You're not going to go into your container and say, oh darn, I shouldn't have, I'll pull that out, I'll pull that out. You're going to leave the entire load out for your garbage collector.
So-
I'm not saying you are.
Right.
You would never
No, I
do that.
understand that.
You probably would never do it improperly.
But
in the first
education,
place.
definitely, the education component is
Because if you
First
turn
and
around and
foremost.
throw that entire recycling load out with your garbage,
Yeah,
then-
there's plenty of education out there right now, right? I mean, to what extent are you going to, people got to either do it or not do it, right? There's plenty of conversation about this. It's on social media, it's in the newspapers, it's on the website, it's been mailers, it's everywhere. So what else can you do?
Do it right.
When in doubt, throw it out.
Any other questions on the finances? Okay, Bob, you want to tackle the next one?
Certainly, Mr. Deputy Mayor. The next one is goals and objectives of follow-up. The Township committee members received a revised memo this afternoon. It's also, there's a copy that Greg has placed on the dais for you. And this is the update of the June 11th memo, which outlined short-term, midterm, and long-term goals. It has the input from the members of the Township Committee from the July 18th meeting, and it also has the input of the Township Committee members who had contacted me individually to discuss either via email or verbally items that they had requested be put in. I would ask that the Township Committee review this memo, take a look at it, and see if the prioritization of the short-term goals, the midterm goals, and the long-term goals are appropriate, because we would be working from top to bottom as we review them or use them as part of our 2020 budget process, and then our benchmarking. So if they are in a form that the members of the Township Committee are agreeable to, then this would go on to the June 12th or a future agenda, to be incorporated into a resolution, and then, each year we would review them, revise them, because this is a living document. It's a snapshot in time, and this will change based on the needs of the township, the mandates that come from other levels of government, or other actions that are required based on whatever occurs. So,
Bob, you have here the contract for the operation of Colony Pool Concession Stand completed. Is that a multi-year contract we have with those folks, or they're going to evaluate at the end of the year?
we're actually supposed to evaluate it very soon. It's a 2-year. They have the option to renew next year.
Gotcha.
So, and what I will say, I have heard very good things. I have heard very good things about the food service there. I've actually eaten there several times, and the food is good. I've received good responses from our residents that have used it, and I would look forward to them coming back in 2020.
They have been very popular with members, very popular with staff. Their tri-tip sandwich is delicious. Was just there, had dinner there Sunday night, and by all reports, they seem to be enjoying being there too. So, I mean, really, fingers crossed. It's been a big improvement, and members are really enjoying it. I actually don't have a copy of the updated. I have my June 11th. I have actually 2 June 11ths. I have our financial committee report.
I just sent you a message when Mr. Hoffman gave me the copy this afternoon. I didn't realize I needed to give you guys copies. I thought he was emailing it to you. So.
No, he did email it to me, and I did make a bunch of comments on it. And now before this, we had a 2.5-hour executive session meeting. So I've got about 5 folders up here. But Bob, you said that the revised version was actually in order of importance.
Yes. Well, that's what I would like to. That's what I would like to see it in. So, I believe that this is a prioritized order, but I'm not wedded to what's in here.
I'm sorry, I don't have a copy. And do you have a copy, Mike?
No, it was sent out electronically, but I did not print it out either with the meeting ahead of time. So I don't know what's the best way to proceed.
What it is why at your convenience, why don't the members of the Township Committee look at it,
Came in an email this afternoon.
and then...
Yeah, I printed it out, wrote out my notes. I have the whole thing. I have an entire file on it,
So if the
Karen,
Township Committee...
I just can't find the one now.
If you have when you have the opportunity, review it, give me your comments back. I'll revise this and I'll send it back out, well before the September 12th, and we can see if it meets the pleasure of the Township Committee.
Are we ever going to actually have the discussion about these, or are we just going to look at the memo that you had?
I think we
Because
have
they're-
discussed it. You brought this up last time as well, and we discussed it. We've had individual conversations with the administrator about this. I don't feel like you're trying to make a public grandstanding about this. I'm not quite sure what you're looking for, how much more discussion you're looking for. I think the idea was we were going to discuss it amongst ourselves, which we have done. We will do it again at the September meeting. It'll be distributed to the public for their input and commentary.
Oh, it will be distributed to the public?
Well, right now, this is labeled confidential so that the township committee can review it and make changes and get it back, because we want to be able to send out whatever is going to be distributed to our residents. It will be distributed after the township committee has reviewed it and has had their final input. So.
Well, I think also, as you said at the outset, it's a moving target. Our priorities can change all the time. God knows the idea that we have the word completed next to our AAA credit rating, that could change at any time. That's never complete. I think being ever vigilant
Knock
of our
on wood,
AAA
yeah.
rating, right? That's something we have to do on an annual basis. So it could be concluded that retaining a AAA rating should be in short term, medium term, and long term. This is it's a movable thing, and our priorities change, and sometimes we realize these things have to sort of be backburnered, and these things have to put on the front burner. So, I think anytime somebody has a priority that needs to be discussed, that's what we're here for. So if all of a sudden something pops up that we think needs to be moved to the forefront, the idea that it's written in stone is actually a little bit unnecessary, I think. We want to make sure that things stay flexible, in my opinion.
I actually found it. No, Kurt, it's not grandstanding when we're trying to look to do a 5-year plan. I've done a lot of looking into this. I've looked at Madison's, I looked at Chatham's, Chatham Borough's 5-year master plans. They look at the town holistically. They look at their recreation costs, their fields, their infrastructure, the whole 9 yards, and go out over time to see what improvements are needed. And I think this gives us a real good basis to start there. I will say that now that I found my document, we seem to be missing a couple of things that I would like to add. Whether you'd like me to do that privately, Bob, or...
Sure. Yeah. Whatever you prefer.
We're missing the...
I would suggest, Tracy, that you do, if it's additions, that it would be difficult to discuss them in substance anyway. So, and yet I think that what we owe the public is a substantive discussion of it. But let's make the additions, since Bob is saying we can do it on the September 12th agenda. Why don't
So you want to have a discussion
Yeah,
on the whole thing
I
on
think
September 12th?
Right. I think that if we see obvious updates, then let's do it first, and then when we have the discussion, have it on something that's as nearly complete as possible, and then the public benefits from having that discussion too, and they don't just get a bulleted list and wonder what went into some of it.
I'm absolutely happy to do that, and I'm absolutely happy to have a fuller discussion in September, Bob, and I will give you the updates that I have to the most current draft.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Tracy. Next topic on the agenda, again, it's your report, Bob, on Colony Pool. Have we covered that already, or is
Yeah,
that...
we've covered that already.
Okay. Very good.
I'm sorry, I obviously was not here. To what extent did we cover it? Did we talk about numbers and
No,
year
what
over
we're-
year and revenue and all the rest?
Now, what we're going to do, the complete colony report will be at the October 10th meeting. So we'll have, at that meeting, we'll have the report on what was the total revenues that were collected, and then what were our total expenses for the year, so that right now we don't have all of the final numbers. We've had, as an example, we've had the tree service has been in this week and to do some more tree work. So that's not something that would be reflected in tonight's discussion. But by the end of the year, we will have all of the expenses. And let me rephrase that, by the end of the year, by the end of the pool year. So after the pool closes, we will, we'll have, we will have received all of the bills. They'll be encumbered. We'll have the complete costs for the lifeguards and for the chemicals and things of that nature. And then we'll be able to do a true P&L analysis. So
We're getting very close.
we are. No,
We're meeting, we're getting very close, we're finding the pockets of money here and there, both revenue and expenses. So I hope to be able to have a full picture of what actually the operational pool costs are for Colony Pool. So
And what we have is, we looked at the numbers, and I will send this out to the Township Committee, but just based on our other priorities with our meeting about affordable housing and other issues, that didn't get out. But we have done a preliminary look at a snapshot as of August 8th, 2018 versus August 8th, 2019. And so we can take a look at that, but that tells us some things. But what we really need to do is we really need to look at what was our total cost for 2019, total revenue, total expenses, and then the Township Committee will have objective information. So registration, it seems like we have about 30 more people that have registered in 2019 than they did in 2018, which is good.
30?
31, I think. you said.
31.
Yeah, it wasn't 300. It was yeah.
Oh.
So
I thought last meeting you said it was a 22%. Doesn't seem like a 22% increase in enrollment.
I didn't say anything at the last meeting, I didn't have numbers at the last meeting.
so
We were at,
Pretty sure. If you look at the video.
whatever it was, we will.
I didn't have numbers
I will
the
be
last
happy
meeting.
to provide objective information to the whole Township Committee. And some of the numbers that come off of Community Pass, they are accurate numbers, but we also receive other revenue and we have other expenses that we capture in Edmonds. So Community Pass does not provide the full picture. So the full picture is provided when you look at Community Pass and you look at the other revenue and expenses that are captured through our Edmonds system. So
Are we going to be able to do that for the prior years as well?
yeah, we're able to, yes, we are. We're able to do that. And the analysis that was done at the beginning of the pool season for the previous years, that included both the Community Pass and the Edmonds information, so.
Okay. But it's not going to be just a comparative of 19 to 18, but we're going to have numbers for 17 and 16. Because as we know, the 2018 year, there was a significant drop-off. But every year prior, from 14 through 18, there was an increase in enrollment and in revenue.
if you have that report, I would love to see it.
Sure.
Can you forward that to Bob too? Because we're looking at all of this. So if you could forward that report, that would be wonderful.
These are the numbers from prior years, Tracy. I would think they're easily to be pulled up on.
No, I mean, if you have the report that says that, I don't have a report that says that. So if you have it, it'd be really helpful because we're trying to go through all the numbers right now to come to the October 10th meeting.
No, I know we previously got numbers off of Community Pass, which shows you total enrollment and revenues from those fees.
Yeah, I'm just saying, if you have those numbers, if you're saying it's the 2013, 2015, 2016, if you have those,
I'm
just,
happy to pull up my
Township-
records and share them.
All right, that'd be fine, but the Township Committee has also received a report from me that goes back to 2014 or 2015 that had the enrollment numbers, had the revenue, and that's what will happen. What the Township Committee will receive in October will be that same type of report formatted so that you'll be able to see it from one year to the next.
But it'll include beyond just Community Pass. It'll include guest fees and stuff like that you're saying that comes in at the gate.
That is correct.
Good.
Yeah.
Great.
Okay. That makes sense to wait until we have the total picture and then do that in an organized fashion. So thank you, Bob. Next item on the agenda is the hearing of citizens and petitions, and this is an opportunity for any member of the public to be heard about issues which are not topics scheduled for public hearings tonight. To help facilitate an orderly meeting and to permit all to be heard, speakers will be limited to 5 minutes. And please identify yourself, and thank you very much for coming.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Steve Reed. I live at 10 Scenery Hill, and I'm here with my wife, Jeanette Reed. Our problem is this surface water drainage that's coming from the new construction next door onto our property. We've raised the issue with Mr. Ruski and with Mr. Huffman, and it's become a very, very serious problem during any significant rain, and even when they have the sprinklers on in the new construction next door. We get this essentially almost a stream coming through our backyard, which we've never had before. We lived in the house for over 20 years. The people before us had a pool there with a retaining wall and some trees, and there was actually absolutely zero surface water coming onto our property. And now we see the new house. Of course, we're happy that it's a beautiful new house next door to us. But the problem is that they put the house up about 4 or 5 feet higher than the other house. And then we saw how they landscaped the backyard, and they landscaped it like kind of a swale that comes into the middle of our backyard. And then they have their engineer certify that about the runoff at pre-construction versus post-construction. And he says there's a zero net additional runoff coming onto our property, which is absolutely false. Because on July 17th, and now every rain we've had since then, we have pictures and photographs and videos where we have basically a trout stream coming through our backyard. It's gotten to be that bad. And the builder denied it, so that once I put the sod in, it's going to be okay. Then what happened is that we had a rainfall that night. The next day, his landscaper stopped me in the road and said, "Hey, Steve, we see what happened. We know what happened because we had literally 4 or 5 inches of rain throughout our backyard with all kinds of debris coming from their side through the silt fence and into our property." So I said, "Okay." They said they're going to take care of it. So then I said, "Fine, I appreciate you're going to do that." They're going to talk to the engineer and to the builder. What did they do? Now, nothing. They say nothing. Their engineer came back and said he did the analysis, and based on his calculations, pre-development versus the post, that there's no net, and that we always had some runoff into our backyard, which is absolutely false. And so I just imagine, so we're looking for your guidance and your advice and recommendations, anything you can help us. Maybe this problem has occurred in other properties throughout the town, but it is a real problem here because I understand you're just relying on their engineers' calculations pre-construction on drainage versus post-construction. There's no analysis or any test by the town, any inspectors, pre-construction to determine what the runoff was. If anybody was ever there before the construction, they would see that there was never any, absolutely zero surface water coming into our property.
Thank you, Mr. Reed.
Thank you.
John, have you had a chance to take a look at that at all?
Yes, I did. I inspected the development, 12 Scenery, after the house and after the property was basically developed. So I did not see the pre-existing conditions, and that's not uncommon. Many times the lot grading plan comes in after a house is demoed, and I go out to a vacant lot, and I just note my observations. Now, in this case, their property is clearly lower than the neighboring property. If the property to the rear and the property again, they are lower than what the property that's being developed. The developer did. At the moment, I'm relying on the engineered plans that were submitted with the lot grading application. The plans I have to rely on the survey that was done by a licensed land surveyor. So based on those plans, it identifies that previously within the drainage area that drains to their property, there was a pool, there was a portion of a driveway, portion of the roof. So there was a substantial amount of what the developer is representing in his sign and seal plans is that there was a substantial amount of impervious coverage that was discharging to their property. And based on the proposed development, there's about an 85% reduction in impervious coverage that's discharging now to their property. The drainage area itself was reduced, I believe, around 20% because because now the roof is being captured and redirected to the dry well. So based on what's being presented to me by the developer's engineer is that there is in fact a reduction in stormwater that's to their property. So at this point, the issue is a matter of, they are disputing the engineering plans that frankly I have to rely on based on their professionals. I can't dispute a land surveyor's, what they came back. So at this point in time, I believe the Reeds did file a complaint in municipal court, and they are, they filed a complaint against the developer, and they're working this issue out in municipal court at this time. I don't know what progress.
No, that's not really true. We resolved that part. They said that basically the action, we resolved another issue that we had with them, and they paid us for that. But with respect to this action, I don't think there's anything further pending in that, in the municipal court.
It was just for the dog?
Well, no, it's for both things, but they say we'd have to pursue this as a private nuisance action later
The court
on.
dismissed it?
Yeah.
I believe so. I believe it was
All right,
formally
so
dismissed.
basically, you have to take different action for that. At this point in time, from an engineering perspective, I don't know how to resolve this matter regarding their claims versus, the plans that are being provided. So I see Mr. Cruz is inching up to the...
Well,
Okay.
if I may share with you pictures, I think pictures are worth 1,000 words. We never, ever had a stitch of water on our property. And how you can remove a retaining wall, and at this point, it's a silt fence that's keeping the water from, this is just from their sprinklers. This is what happened the day after the storm. And my understanding in town, there should be a no-net runoff. Isn't that one of the
Requirements.
requirements?
Yeah.
This is, look what happened, through the silt fence onto our property. We had a river running through our yard when it rained. We never, ever had this. What's going to happen when, in the wintertime, when the property's frozen and we have rain coming in March?
Well, the owner and the builder are taking sort of a contradictory position, because they acknowledged after these rains and even having their own sprinklers on that yard, that the water and the debris and everything, they're creating a stream in our backyard. But now they're still pointing back and say, what are you going to do? So then they cut up the grass a little bit, and they made like they brought down about 6 inches, did absolutely nothing. But anyway, that was what that was, I guess, their proposed fix for the problem. But their engineer, the engineer is saying, oh, we complied with the plans and there's no net runoff and all this. But they know, the owner knows, the builder knows it, and their landscaper knows. All three of them have basically admitted this is a problem. They know it's a real problem. But now they're just going to point back to the builder, to the engineer, their engineer, and then they're going to sell the property, and then we're going to have this problem with the new owners. And then we had disclosure issues.
Did this problem start when the retaining wall was removed, you're saying, or no?
Well,
It's
there was
beyond that.
they had a pool there, which the builder removed, but there was a retaining wall. So he took that wall down, I guess it was almost about as high as this. So how you can remove a wall that was as high as this and simply put 4 stones and then have this, right now it's a silt fence that's keeping the water from rushing in.
But I'm saying, so the retaining wall
It's gone.
acted as the barrier between
Yes.
getting the water.
We assume, there was a
never
pool
had
there,
a
retaining wall and other, whatever, and their property was higher than ours, but never that much higher, because when they put the new house in, they built it up, and they put more fill in. That whole property is
Is
higher
there
now.
room to build a retaining wall on your property to
Could we?
replace what was there?
Well, I don't know if it was really kind of where the pool was, I guess, so that's why the wall was there with the pool. In the front, it was completely flat, and our houses were completely side by side. But this guy built it up to where it's, and all the grading is coming down towards our property. So,
Is there room to build a retaining wall now, though, or no?
I mean, the way he's pitched it, I guess, at this point, I don't know what he's going to do, because this has been his retaining wall. What's he going to do when the people come to look at the property? This silt fence has been acting as the retaining wall. This is what was...
It doesn't work because the
water goes... This is what happened when it rained.
The river goes right through it, comes in our property.
So John, the net runoff might be the same, but the concentration of the runoff is obviously creating the problem. It's all channeling into one, whereas
We
perhaps...
That's an excellent point. That could be
perhaps
the case.
the
Maybe,
net calculation might have been great, it's all getting dispersed, but in fact, it's not getting dispersed, it's just channeling.
that's
Is there any
possible, but we really didn't even
calculation
have
that
any
we
water.
never
We had
had
net
water?
anywhere,
Right.
anywhere on the side. So I don't know where the water was going, but it never came onto our property.
Well, it might have just been going along the
Yeah.
entire length of your yard, and now all of a sudden, it's just coming right
Yeah,
down
he's
in
got,
one
because that was
channel.
funneled in that
Literally, it's
direction.
ruined
without
our
no drain, no
vegetation.
drywall.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
ruined the vegetation,
Yeah,
I
your
can't plant
landscapers come in to
anything,
look at
everything is
what's-
gone.
yeah, it's
I
all
mean,
matted down.
Yeah, the whole yard
Albert,
is gone.
Can you give us some legal advice on, I mean, is this between you two neighbors? Is it at the township? What's the?
Well, my own personal feeling on what I understand about this is that, as Mr. Rushke said, there isn't that comparison point of a pre and post construction. And at that point, Mr. Rushke can only rely upon the certification of an engineer. And what does a certification of an engineer or a land surveyor or any professional that is licensed means is that they're putting their license on the line. So those calculations are by a professional. Mr. Rushke is entitled to rely upon them. They've asked that Mr. Rushke issue a summons to the builder. Mr. Rushke does not have a basis to do that. And so the property owner went to court, filed a municipal court summons with two aspects of it. One, damage to a fence, a dog fence, an electric fence, I believe, and then this issue on the runoff. And as I understand what's been said, is that the issue with the dog fence was resolved. The issue with the runoff was treated as a nuisance between two private property owners. And that, I think, is where the matter lies, is between two property owners. If, in fact, the owner acknowledges that there is a runoff problem, then that is something that the property owner can pursue against that owner. They've admitted that there's an issue that they have to address. They've tried to address it in part and been unsuccessful. So I view this as a matter between two private property owners. To require the township engineer to inspect every property at every stage of the grading and what is occurring there simply is a burden that the town will not be able to sustain in terms of the costs. So the engineer does what is industry practice is rely upon the certification of another engineer. We can sit here and try to redesign the grading, but I think really the solution here is these two, the Reeds and the developer have to sit down and try to come to a resolution.
That being said, Albert, we have photos here that show that they're in violation, certainly, of the silt fence and everything else. So with this in hand, be it the first time we're hearing it, or the third or second or first, whatever case might be, we can certainly go out there and cite them for violations, no?
Well, that's a conclusion that Mr. Rushke would have to look at.
Certainly.
But the issue is really what the overall effect is.
Well, the immediate effect is to fix it so that the stuff's not dumping on their lawn. And then I don't know what the fine would be for this sort of thing, but eventually this keeps happening. You keep finding the person, maybe they'll say, you know what, I'm tired of getting fined, or a stop work order, whatever we can do. You know what, maybe I should build a retaining wall to resolve this once and for all.
Put a drywall in.
Whatever. The point is, let's put the pressure on this guy to fix it.
That was a question. Did they put a dry well in the back of that property
No.
after they removed
No.
the pool and the retaining wall?
No.
And they weren't required to, John, were they? When
They
you
did
remove like such large structures like that, that would change the topography?
They installed dry wells that meet the ordinance, and they were installed in the front, and the entire roof area is discharged to the dry wells.
So just the front, not the back where all the area land was disturbed?
The back, the engineer showed reductions based on the amount of impervious coverage that was removed. There was a substantial amount of impervious coverage from the pre-existing condition that was removed prior to what he's proposing now.
Is the pool considered impervious coverage?
Yeah, but you know,
Like a little crazy, right? Because it's actually water.
The photos that they're showing, it occurred during a very catastrophic storm event. I was there the day after, and I was visiting a half a dozen other properties in town because it was such a storm event. It was an unusual, extensive amount of rain, so it's I have not seen photos or anything of an event like that happening after that occurrence. Where we currently stand with the situation is that they do not have a final sign-off. They don't have a final CO. I have not received the final certification from the engineer that the site is in compliance with the approved lot grading plan. And the things that I emphasized to him that is he already, I raised a concern regarding the stormwater that was submitted. I asked them to revisit it and emphasize specifically, to again, reiterate exactly go in further detail, give further clarification, make it very clear regarding your assessment of this particular discharge area and the conclusion. And he did do even more detailed calculations to demonstrate that there is no net change from this location. He did include ponding factors associated with the pool and the retaining wall, so he did that was accounted in his calculations. It is hard for me to say that no water ever was discharged to their property because it is physically lower. Their property is lower than the adjoining property, and there's nowhere else for the water to go except there. So to say that all the water was captured by a retaining wall and all the water was captured by the pool, it's hard for me to defend that in a summons and with that.
If it wasn't before, mounded like the building is now, and then absent the retaining wall, the new construction is mounded up, and the retaining wall and all that, absent that fact, and I mean, do you have any photographs of the property, which was just the normal house, flat lot, no difference,
No.
no differential between your two lots?
In the front, I do have a picture on my phone of the two from way back when, but I mean, it was, yeah, I mean, we were completely side by side.
So
I mean,
now
there
the
was-
fact
there
that
was-
the
The
house
front is
is
flat.
We would know if there was water. There was never
5 feet
water.
higher.
There was never water in our backyard. This was from their sprinkler system. This is just their sprinkler system, and we have this water.
If you run the sprinkler system and there's supposed to be no net runoff, and we see physically on the property that now there is this swale of water coming from the sprinkler system.
What does no net runoff mean?
And in fact, our ordinance doesn't, our ordinance has reduction requirements, and that's what, they met the ordinance. We do not take a lot and divide it into multiple areas and quadrants and say, yeah, in every point that you're meeting, that we look at it as a whole. But I do go enforce a little bit beyond what the ordinance supports, and I do make sure that no one's getting more water. And so in this case, they did not increase the drainage area going to this particular point. They've actually reduced the amount of impervious covers. They reduced the drainage area. In fact, the half of the driveway, the way it's represented in our plan, discharged directly to their property. So it's hard for me to issue a summons based on, and that no water ever went to the property based on what's being presented to me by the engineering plans. By the engineering plans, it's very clear on the plan that they're certifying that portions of the driveway was discharged to their property, portions of the roof, and the whole area is low-lying. It's a lower area than the lot. They live at a lower area than the adjoining property. To say that they have, I have no engineering basis or fundamental basis to say that no water ever went to that property. I just don't have the evidence. That's what I need. I need physical evidence to dispute what's being presented to me.
On their plans, does the elevation of the home show any difference? Because there's a significant difference when you drive through.
Yeah, no,
That
absolutely.
you see how
There's-
it's mounded up and built.
The house is higher, but it's also showing that the area that was between, they moved the driveway. The driveway was adjoining to their lot, and they moved it to the opposite side of the driveway, so now.
The opposite side of the house.
Opposite side of the house, so now they're not getting, now they're getting water from grass versus pavement, so, it's hard for me, believe me, I go out of my way to try to help, people in this situation, but I just don't.
John, how about the claim that the sprinkler system is contributing to this? Is that something we might have some separate control over?
Yeah, absolutely. I was my understanding that they adjusted it. That's what someone told me. So if they didn't adjust the sprinkler, I can go back to them.
The sprinklers, they're still having the problem. But
Okay,
Mike,
I can go
also
back
to
to
keep
them
in
with the
mind, the
sprinkler.
pitch on the driveway isn't nearly the pitch that's towards our house. The pitch on the driveway, on that side of the house, isn't as steep as it is.
They built up the house, now the side of the house comes down, the driveway before was just flat.
No,
and it's
and the new driveway is not,
on the other side.
and it's not that pitch that we have, so. But, I don't understand how this is gonna resolve the problem. I mean, the landscaper clearly knew. The landscaper came up to me, and he goes, I know there's a problem. They know, he admitted it to me. So he dug up a little bit of grass, dug up a little dirt underneath, put the grass back down, and this is gonna resolve, so you're gonna have, and I know people are coming to look at the house, because he's got the house, the realtor is busy, so people are gonna walk into this house with this type of problem.
John, can we pursue the sprinkler issue, and do we have the legal authority to withhold any certificate of occupancy until they resolve that part of it? I don't think we're qualified to engineer this project.
Right.
And I hesitate to thrust ourselves into this. I think that the point I'm hearing is that their engineer is putting his license on the line by saying what he said. And if he's sticking to his guns,
Well, he's falling back on calculations.
and all of our calculations
yeah.
are that the driveway's been moved away, the pool and the surrounding patio around the pool have been moved away. I think I'm hearing that, I'm hopeful that we could withhold the certificate of occupancy based on the sprinkler problem alone, and make it very clear that he needs to satisfy his neighbor's problem. But when it comes down to the engineers versus the engineers, I hesitate.
Can I ask, what are they gonna do when they remove the silt fence that's acting as a retaining wall? What's gonna happen when this is removed? Right now, this is retaining the water. When they remove this, what's gonna happen?
You're gonna get more water.
We are gonna get a ton of water, which we never had. Our basement has been dry, we've never had a stitch of water. So how is he getting away with having this? This has been his retaining wall.
I guess there's no rule that says you can't remove a retaining wall.
Okay.
I don't.
And at this point, it's to Albert or Jonathan, it's a neighbor versus neighbor, and I think it's pretty ridiculous, quite frankly.
Well,
that
I
we
have,
can't,
I have one question,
find
and
them.
that is, when you were in the municipal court, did they refer this matter, the second part, to mediation? Sometimes the municipal...
We went to mediation, that's how we resolved it.
So while you were in municipal court, you made a presentation to an impartial party at the municipal court who helped you come to a resolution on the first part of your claim. With respect to the second part, there was no resolution, or there was an inability to come to a, what
It was very informal. I think the mediator just came to the conclusion that he wasn't going to make a decision, and then the builder, but the owner was actually there that day with us, and the owner said, look, it's going to rain tonight, and I just put the sod down, he said, and you'll see that it's better now that the sod is there. That was the night of the storm when it was rained a lot, and then that was the night we had the river going through the backyard, so he was totally wrong. That's the next day when the landscaper came up to me and said, okay, we now know we got a big problem here.
Well, Mr. Mayor, what I would suggest is something similar to what you were suggesting. Let me speak with Mr. Rushke. I agree with you. You're not going to be able to solve this issue here. You're not equipped to do this. This is an engineering issue. And you're hearing from Mr. Rushke, you're hearing from the Reeds, you're not hearing from the builder's engineer. Not that that would help you in coming to a decision, because that's really not a function. As you can tell, there was an effort to try to resolve this at the municipal court level. Let me speak with Mr. Rushke in the next day or so, and let me see if he and I can come up with a way to facilitate a resolution of this, really as a continuation of what happened at the municipal court. I'm hesitant to make this suggestion because as I said, I view this as a personal, private property matter, but I also understand your concern, Mr. Rushke's concern, on trying to be helpful to these residents of the town. So with your permission, if you'd allow me to speak with Mr. Rushke, come back with a plan, and then I will either communicate with the Reeds through Mr. Rushke, or I'll speak with them directly. Because based upon what I've seen here, you're not able to resolve this.
Okay.
If it was an issue of an ordinance amendment, that's something you could do prospectively, and maybe that's something for Mr. Rushke to consider, is what can be done for the future so it doesn't happen on other properties. But again, give me the opportunity to speak with John and get back to the Reeds.
Great.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Albert, if I can interject, this is not the first matter we've heard about neighbors impacting neighbors. And all of us, I'm sure, have heard stories of our own neighbors, people we know, people we see in the grocery store, saying you wouldn't believe. I mean, I go around my neighborhood, I see this. Bob, you and I have had other neighbors in various parts of town addressing this matter. So in my opinion, if there is something that can put more teeth into our existing ordinance, so that folks like the Reeds and the scores of people that we've heard from would have some additional recourse, can we possibly explore that from an ordinance perspective?
That's something for Mr. Rushke. He's got to make that determination, but really you have to realize Chatham Township's not flat land.
I know.
And there's
And we're
always,
built on hills and swales
you're always
and-
going to have water issues.
Yes.
And no matter how well an ordinance is done, you're not going to solve every issue.
Right.
So a lot of this depends on the good faith of the two adjoining property owners and how they're able to do it. It seems like the builder here tried to reach some accommodation, wasn't enough, and that's really what I think I'd like to explore, is what else has to be done to try to reach. But in terms of Mr. Rushke being able to issue a summons, my advice to Mr. Rushke is, you don't issue a summons unless you can prove your case.
Sure.
Okay? You don't issue a summons just to bring someone to court. You have to be ready to try that case and prevail.
Right, and we know that our municipal court would much rather have two parties come to an agreement than come to the court.
And that was tried,
Yeah.
So let me speak with John and,
Like the pictures?
and see if we can come up with something.
I do want to make a bit of a separation here, though, because you talked about resident versus resident, and Karen, there certainly are those issues where somebody puts up a fence and they're not supposed to,
Yeah.
and then you got water running down, or somebody cuts down their trees and now you have water. This is a builder, so that's different to me.
Right,
So-
but it's a property owner, so you're talking about property owner versus property owner, and
Right.
we already know you
But in
can't
terms-
discriminate between classes of
No,
property owners.
right, but I can remember in doing, regrading after Sandy with the yard work, with all the trees that had to come down, the thing that was stressed to me was that I could not have any runoff into my neighbor's yard. So there was no net runoff. And it didn't make any difference because I was the low lot and I was getting everybody else's water.
But under the penalty of what? That's the
But
question.
under the penalty of
what?
what? I mean, I didn't mound up my backyard. I just, took down the trees and did that. But it was clear to me in those discussions that the onus was on me to not disturb my neighbor's property and have any water go onto their property.
Right.
So I think there is a bit of a difference Although you're right, you're correct, you can't treat anybody differently.
If you look
We
at-
do have people who don't follow the rules,
Yeah.
and that causes harm on other people's properties. And then we have builders who are mounding things up, and, you know, it's changing the topography of the land, and then it's, you know, we're getting a lot of complaints.
Well, even if you have property owners and it's not a stormwater runoff, but what if they keep their property in the sense that now all of a sudden you have creatures living in the lawns, because the lawns are too
the
long?
lawn's
and
too wet.
You're not obviously, we're not required to maintain our property in a park-like fashion. I think that's the term they use, right, Albert? But certainly when it comes to safety, matters of creatures and stormwater and all sorts of other things.
Basements.
Yeah.
Okay.
Snakes.
I think it's in Albert's and John's hands at the moment, and I think as professionals, I'd like to see what they can come up with. Thank you.
Just a final note is, you know, I did ask the developer to do more beyond the ordinance. I always ask that when if there's a situation like this, even if I agree or disagree, I still try to get, you know, developer or neighbor or whatever the case. In this case, the developer was not willing to go beyond the ordinance. He just, you know, drew the line. You know, regarding ordinance changes, you know, we did recently adopt changes to lot grading, which will be helpful. One being the fact that, you know, we do require dry wells to go in now with the foundations and roofs to be guttered as soon as possible. That's been an ongoing problem, because now you always have, and in this particular case, they did get a lot of issues during construction because the developer didn't put roof leaders on the gutters right away, and that was an issue I had to go bring up to their attention and do that. We also have the ongoing issue with all development is that we base the stormwater based on, you know, post conditions, final conditions, grass. We don't base it on, you know, bare soil being exposed, and you do get more runoff during construction, during construction. And you know, it is a bit impractical to start on larger development. You would build detention basins, you'll build sedimentation basins to deal with those increases. But on a single family home, it's really hard you can't really physically build a detention basin to mitigate that temporarily. You can't put that into a dry well because it'll silt it up with the first storm. So we try to incorporate and you know, try to mitigate as much as we can, but that is an ongoing issue with just the nature of construction having that issue. And then lastly, you know, I did bring up the issues with the developer before regarding the sprinkler. I was told it was addressed, and we'll bring that up again. You know, that's something that I'm not sure if, even though he hasn't requested a certificate of occupancy, but that's something that he needs to address right away.
Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Hi, Stacy Ewald, 54 Nicholson Drive. I just wanted to thank the administration for their efforts developing short, long-term goals and objectives and financial projections. I think with everything going on with affordable housing, infrastructure needs, development, I think that's excellent business practice, so I appreciate your efforts, and I look forward to hearing more about the goals and objectives in September. One question I have, and I apologize, I missed Mrs. Swartz's update, is where electrical infrastructure factors in. That's been a big point of frustration for everybody. I know when we moved in, you know, you'd maybe have a power outage every few years, and that was alarming that it was that often, and now, you know, 5 times during the year is becoming status quo. So 2 questions, you know, what's been done to get JCP&L on this short term, and then long term in terms of developing goals, if there's a way to incorporate improving our electrical infrastructure.
We actually have a meeting planned for September with our JCP&L area manager. So we have been obviously in close contact about things. The recent power outage where 3,000 people were knocked out for 20 minutes because of one matter. The switching that actually caused all of those homes to come back online within 12 minutes, I think, speaks to a lot of the improvements that they have done. I'm not coming to their defense, but they are doing a lot. There's no doubt, looking around, that the load on our infrastructure is greater than it was when we all moved in. I mean, you can't help but look around and see a lot of the houses much bigger, much more load on the lines, and they've done improvements. But We are definitely expecting that we're going to hear more about what they are doing to increase the reliability of their grid to us. It's
Okay.
not Chatham Township that's being isolated, not by any stretch. We get power outage alerts from all over Morris County. I always say a squirrel can't fall off a pole in Jefferson without us all getting an alert about it. But it does seem prevalent. I don't know whether it is or not, whether we're just more in tune to it, Stacy.
Are you pulling them into one of these meetings? Because I know every once in a while, the power companies get called in to kind of,
They'll be coming in September, that's my
oh,
intention.
here?
Yeah.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well, I'll
thank
make
you.
sure it will be publicized.
Okay, thank
All
you.
right? Yeah, you bet.
How you doing? Dan Miller, 465 Green Village Road. Here all the time, just not around election time. First question is, I was home. I wasn't coming out. I had a busy day, but I heard about using surplus. Okay, and then I also heard about projections, and I also heard, and it was almost in the same sentence, using surplus and then sewer treatment plants. Okay? We are not considering, I certainly hope, using surplus to fund anything with sewer treatment plants.
Well, that would be the answer, the short-term answer is no. I was using that as an example of when you do your planning for whatever the needs of the municipality are. You plan for roads, you plan for other things. You also plan for upgrades to the sewer treatment plant.
Right, but not
So-
with surplus money, which comes
No,
from people who also are not, who are in septic areas and not
No,
under
we
sewer,
have-
because that's
we-
my tax dollars that is added into that surplus.
That is true, and if you got agitated about that, I apologize, because that wasn't the intent. The intent was to say that when we look at our plan, we have to include what would be the costs for for equipment in the sewer treatment plant.
Sure.
And we have we have actually two utilities at the moment that pay for that, and there are fees that the residents who do use the sewer treatment plant, they pay those fees to the utility, but the Township Committee is responsible for the overall stewardship of our resources. So if I was imprecise, I apologize. It was not meant that the Miller family or anybody else that's on septic is.
No,
It's
that's
going-
fine,
it's going
just
to
as
pay
long
for-
as surplus isn't going towards the sewer systems, because, there's many residents in town that aren't on sewers, so therefore, any monies we would hope would be equally given back to us in a rebate to offset the cost for our septic systems. The other, and in regards to the sewer plant, I brought this up before, and we know that we have a licensing fee and a requirement to have our septics pumped every 3 years. And I've been told that's a processing fee for the most part. I'm in disagreement with that. But then I was wondering, we have employees here that have to be processing sewer payments. Okay? Are there fees added into the sewer payments to pay for the employees at the town that are processing such payments?
I'll have to look and I'll get back to you, but the answer is the majority of the sewage fees are for to pay for the equipment and the employees that actually work in the sewage treatment plant.
Right, but I was told that my $15 licensing fee, and Karen, you were the liaison. Yes, was for the employees here at Town Hall to process our payments. That's what the $15 goes for. Well,
in
someone
a
in town.
fashion, but yes, you
Yeah.
take certain amount of manpower hours, and you dedicate those manpower hours towards processing septic, and you take a certain amount of manpower hours towards processing quarterly sewage payment, sewer payment entries, and is any of the sewer treatment fees going towards paying?
Right, are those
Or
costs
vice
added
versa,
into
I
the
should
sewer
say,
payments, you
into
know?
the
And,
tax, right.
and if not, then we shouldn't be paying, you know, our $15 every 3 years. And, you know, because furthermore, you know, people on sewer are very lucky. You know, number one, it gets maintained for them by themselves. Number two, they don't have to pay 50 grand up front to put their septic systems in. You know, number three, they weren't lied to when they had their sewer capacity taken away from them and told them we were going to make sure that you got SBA loans and low interest loans and all this, and the township would always be with you no matter what happens. You know, that was an Abbey Fair and a Sue Hogue deal, you know, another lie. And so therefore, you know, some people say, oh, it's only $15. Well, you know, if everyone's not being treated equally here in town, there's a problem. You know, and I expect to be treated equally. So I'm sure that you'll look into that, Bob, and I appreciate that. My second thing goes to the Reeds and their issue. And, you know, Karen, you're 100% right. And John, you know, you took a walk with me and Bob, and I've talked to Tracy as well about what goes on with maintaining the side setbacks in, you know, or rear setbacks, or front setbacks, you know, and, you know, we've had the issue, you know, and it's not a builder, Tracy, or it's not, you know, John Rushke who owns the property next door, because, quite honestly, the problem at my mother's house was Morris County Parks, okay? So it doesn't matter whether it's private or anything else when we're not requiring that there be some reasonability with what's done with the setbacks. You know, when we're not listening to the long-term residents and we're listening to the folks who have just either redesigned or acquired property, that's a problem. That's a problem. I don't doubt that the Reeds just decided to say, now's the time to bite. I doubt that that's what's going on here. And same with Jeanette Miller, 82 years old. You know, God knows how many years in the house. You know, she didn't just decide to say that, oh, Morris County bought the property, now I'm going to strike. You know, the woman just wants to live out her time and enjoy herself and not have slithering snakes and such coming on her back stairs. And of all neighbors, Morris County Park System. You know, I had, and you know, you have to watch when you say who owns what, because I had the park system say, well, now Morris County Parks own it, so therefore all town ordinances don't mean anything because our name's on the deed. Is that the same for when Dan Miller's name goes on the deed? You know, I don't think so. So, you know, I know that John and Bob and some of you folks up there were considering discussing this matter about maintaining all the setbacks so that people can see getting out of their driveways. We have township-owned property, which, you know, we looked at. That is also, you know, not in compliance with that, and quite frankly, a nuisance to the neighbor. You know, we also need to have, when agreements are met or reached with the county or Green Acres, using all of our open space funds, whether it be from here in the township, county dollars, state dollars, you know, that's all taxpayer money. That's all money that everyone is paying. You know, when agreements are reached for maintenance, they should be upheld. You know, you look at the Kirby property, it's a joke, an absolute joke. Passive recreation. Passive recreation. The cattails are higher than this ceiling. Okay? Cut twice a year? What a load of crap. And nobody cares because they got their photo op. You know, nobody cares about Jeanette Miller. Nobody cares about the Reeds. Everybody just cares about their photo op and walk away. And, oh, yeah, you know, it was great. We told them we're going to maintain it. Ha, ha, ha. You know, and then the answer is, well, we don't have the resources. We don't have the people. We don't have this. We don't have that. And who suffers? The taxpayer, the person who paid for it. It's not a zoning issue, as some people have said, and pass it off to the planning board, that's a load of crap too. It's an enforcement issue, it's a common sense issue, and it's an issue of decency to the existing homeowners, to the neighbors, and to the new folks coming in town. Nobody wants to buy a house and all of a sudden there's a stream going through the damn backyard because they didn't buy it on the day it was raining.
Dan, I don't think you have to convince us about that at all. I think we spent a significant amount of time wrestling with the Reeds' issue and tried to leave it in a way that would constructively get it resolved. We sympathize with their situation and if anyone else who has a similar situation.
How about the Kirby property?
Go ahead.
Well, we all know $85,000 an acre, and it was supposed to be maintained twice a year. Why isn't it?
I don't know what the original deed restriction is.
I will contact the Morris County Parks Department and others.
Well, the agreement, John, you know what the agreement said.
Very good.
Okay? You got property next to the Green Village Post Office. Okay? Township owned, I believe. Look.
I don't believe so.
We don't know that.
Yeah, that lot we looked at, that was the county.
So the county owns that. Another one. I mean, absolute garbage. Garbage. You know, it looks like hell. You know? But when you come out to Green Village, that's okay because it's out in Green Village. Doesn't matter. You know? When are we going to start having people enforce this stuff? No, seriously, when?
Dan, I appreciate you're holding our feet to the fire, and we deserve it, because you're right. And all along, it's been a matter of enforcement, and we have to figure out how to do it. And when we were talking now about going to court with these things and having the judge dismiss these people, saying, please just go settle this out of court, neighbor to neighbor, it gets beyond that. It gets beyond that a lot of times. So we are having the discussions, you know we are, and we just spoke again to it tonight, and maybe Mr. Cruz and Mr. Rushke can get together and see if there is a matter we can take. It's a shame when a governing body has to get in between two neighbors. It's a real shame, because that just speaks to a breakdown in an understanding that perhaps wouldn't have existed a generation or two ago, but unfortunately we're there now when it comes to people maintaining properties of their own with consideration towards the people who live next door.
Yeah, and there again, it lends itself, Ms. Swartz, to, you know, it's not a zoning issue.
No,
it's not a limiting of what one can do with their property. It's an enforcement issue, and it's an issue of common decency
Yes, you're
between
right.
neighbors.
Well,
you know.
your concerns are not lost on us. I assure you that, you know that.
And you know, Mr. Kelly, when we have agreements with the county on maintenance of property, those agreements should be upheld. You know, I want to walk the Kirby property. I want to walk it every day. I can run the trails. I know how to get back there without going on the bike paths, okay? And nobody can walk back there.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody's ever been able to since they bought it.
Yes, thank you. The issue has been brought up about enforcement, and I would just like to point out, I don't think there's anybody in this room that doesn't agree with it, the issue of enforcement. I would also like to point out that we have at least 2 properties where there has been enforcement action that has been taken, but once it gets to court, and we will not go into the details, but we are now looking at 4 months of postponements on at least one property, and 3 months on another. So the township has wished to take action on certain, you know, well, the township has wished to take action, and we will, we must wait for our day in court. And when our day comes, we will insist on enforcement. But
Kirby is open space, right?
Oh, yeah.
Maybe Mike, the Open Space Committee, can just review various open spaces we have in the township and just do a quick analysis and say, okay.
I would need to look at it. There's all categories of open
Yeah.
space and access, you know, whether access is allowed or
Yeah.
allowed under
But
certain
to Dan's
circumstances.
point, I mean, quite frankly, maybe half of us in this committee don't even realize that it was passive recreation Kirby was done, because I wasn't on the committee then, and I've driven by to just assumed it was what it was. But if some of these things, if not for Dan and others who step up and tell them these things, no one's tracking it or monitoring it, so maybe the Open Space Committee can do an analysis and say, okay, these are our X number of parcels, and this is what's required, and this is what's the zone, not zoned for, but what's permitted on the space, and we can take it from there. That might be a nice step.
Yeah,
I
and
think they're
it
doing that
would
as
be.
part of their master plan redo.
Everything, it's very clear what happens. Things get purchased as open space, and then all bets are off. We don't maintain the setbacks for the neighbors if they're next to an improved property, okay? We don't maintain the front setbacks, okay? To the point where, in my case, I can't tell you, how many emails I had to send, and it shouldn't be. It should be an enforcement issue at the local level, and I don't care if it's the county or if it's Green Acres or if it's township-owned property or partially township-owned property, then the township should be out there making sure that these front side setbacks are taken care of.
I think we've got that message, Dan, so I appreciate it.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Dan.
Hello, my name is Lee Giblin. I live at 27 Rolling Hill Drive. I'm here primarily to discuss the skate park, the Chatham Skate Park. My main question right now is, my understanding was from a previous meeting, which I wasn't able to attend, but I had been told that there were locations that were being explored to move the skate park to. So I just wanted to find out what the developments are with regard to discussions on moving the skate park or just identifying land to put the skate park on. Because the children in our township, it's really, really important to them. And I know that they've come with petitions. I know my son skates at the skate park. So I'm just very, very curious. I know that there are several residents that are curious with regard to this.
We certainly have looked at a number of sites. I don't know if any of them are still viable and still on the active list. Bob, is there any way to characterize any of that? It is a conundrum. We've talked to the Board of Education and the school officials about it to try to get them involved in it. And we have talked to some officials from adjoining towns to try to get their active involvement in this, because pretty much as you just said, it's a regional facility that has been very, very well used and very appreciated for 15 years. And the irony is that the township that has provided this regional facility for 15 years and has been used by people from all over is now being held accountable to continue to provide that. And we've reached out for help from the school system, from the towns, and from the users themselves. And I guess I can't reiterate that often enough, is that now, while the skate park is still being actively used, we hope that the people who are concerned and who are looking for solutions are talking among themselves and getting names and contact information, so that there's not a time when they're at a loss to how to communicate among themselves and help make something happen. We're certainly hope that we can find a solution. We have not found a solution yet.
So what is the...
Mr. Deputy Mayor, if I may.
Please.
Okay, thank you. We've looked at this. There's some continuing dialogue, but there are other decisions that have to be made first before we can either present one or two options for the skateboard park, because there are other matters that must be settled before that. I don't mean to be vague about it, but there are some parcels that could be considered here in the township, but there are other pressing needs that the Township Committee and the professional staff are looking at. So once other decisions are made, that will let us know whether some of the parcels we've identified are a viable solution. But we have other matters of litigation that have to be addressed first before we can solve, the skateboard situation here in the township. There are 2 other municipalities that are discussing creating a skateboard park, and I have had conversations with my counterparts in those communities, but they are just conversations right now, and there's there will be conversations in the near future about that issue and some other issues when we get together. But the skateboard park is open. It's usable right now. Future locations just depend on these other matters of litigation that must be resolved.
One of my frustrations with the skate park, having been around when they were fundraising to actually build the skate park with Mary Carnes and Suzanne Bonama, whom actually reached out to me after they saw some of the information in the paper, is a couple of things that we found out about the structure. One, that it's old. 2, that they're not producing it anymore. And 3 is that it was not specifically designed for outdoor use. So in talking to Suzanne Bonamo, I got the contact for the installer, and I've asked for us to reach out to the installer to give us, because this has never been answered in, 2.5 years now, can we actually move it? Was this structure designed to be moved? It's currently damaged.
It's only a small piece that's damaged, though.
Yeah, it's right. So it's do we repair it? Is it movable? I'm looking for that answer.
I think when you talk about the paradigm of actual skateboarding these days, using the equipment that we have now is actually antiquated. And didn't we talk about the idea of that sort of pool without water actually being the more essential skateboarding environment?
That's what they're building now.
Right? They're not building asphalt with slide jumps anymore. No. And you can buy them used because communities don't want them.
No, understood, but something is better than nothing in terms of a skateboard park.
And that's what we have, with all due respect to what
we'll
we've got.
take the asphalt.
It's better than nothing.
Right.
But I don't think it would be prudent to take old equipment that's outdated and used and perhaps irreparable and move it to a new asphalt pad on property that we or another community ended up with. I don't
So then what would your suggestion be then to
continue to explore, obviously. I mean,
Okay.
intellectually, to look at what
Understood.
skateboard parks are all about these days. When you have fun at one place, that doesn't mean that it's immediately transferable to another place. If we were going to do, I think if Chatham Township were going to in any way sponsor a new skate park or to participate in one, we probably would want to be intellectual about it and see what the new skate park
understood.
are.
Understood. But I guess I'm curious as to the timing, because
I don't think we can even discuss timing.
Well, I guess what I want to know is that this probably could be discussed. When are they planning on removing the skate park for this development? They haven't set a date for the development yet?
Extremely vague.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
No,
I
it's not
figured.
going to happen.
So the affordable housing doesn't have any
There's
sort
so
of.
many moving parts to
Got
that.
it.
That
Okay.
it's really to pinpoint a calendar date.
Okay.
I don't think could be even.
No, I understand not a calendar date, but like a general time frame.
Yeah, to say 6 months or something like that.
Okay.
That would be entirely imprudent to go and say
We just don't know.
that there's something
Understood.
that could happen.
I think
Understood. But I just like hearing that we are still discussing looking for land, property, whether it's to build a new one,
Yeah.
whether it's to move or, improve on the existing one and move it, as long as we're trying to identify something, because these kids really rely on it. So when the skateboard goes, I can tell you my son would be very visibly upset. He'd want it, he would be comforted though in knowing, yes, don't worry. You're watching the skate park being dismantled, but don't worry about it. we have, the township committee, or the township has come up with a
It's
plan.
something I think we're all kind of in agreement.
Okay, great.
About as far as the wellness of our kids, if they choose this as an avenue of exercise, we don't want to
Well,
snatch
it's
it away
good to
from them.
know.
I mean,
That's-
having
okay.
an alternative for them would always be.
That being
an
said, if we find out that you cannot in fact move this, or even if you could move it, we wouldn't want to move it because it's so old, and nowadays skate parks are built a different manner. The question is, would the committee pay for this, the township could pay for it, or would the residents pay for it? In the past, residents paid for it. So, maybe in your planning with your other groups who are skateboarder folks, if you're on the committee of the skateboard park, they start thinking about, okay, you know what, somewhere down the road, this train's coming, we're going to have to fundraise. So maybe we can start thinking about how we're going to fundraise for this.
Okay,
And you can be part of the solution in terms of, okay, the next skate park might look like X, and we can do Y for X dollars, or we can do Z for X dollars, or for Y dollars, whatever the case. So maybe the conversation amongst the skateboarders should be, all right, it's not if, but when,
or where.
and where, but what can we do in terms of playing a role, and it's...
Well, understood. I guess the thing, though, is, like I said, I think a lot of the kids today would still accept that asphalt. It's all a question of whether or not it could be moved. I think having an expert come in to not the DPW, no offense, but a true expert on skateboarding parks, because something is better than nothing.
Well, we have the
And-
name of the installer. I just wanted you to know.
Yeah, the
So we have
installer.
the
No,
installer. The
a lot of
DPW
installers
has
have
the-
incentives to want to sell you the new one, too.
They
So,
can't, because it's not produced anymore.
well, that's exactly, I'm talking about sell their brand-new system. So they'd love to tell you, oh, no, you can't repair it, buy our new one.
Didn't
But-
we have experts here on the mat, like
You
people
may-
who
I
actually
haven't been
came
here.
a couple of
Were there?
sessions ago who were experts?
I haven't read that anywhere, but if,
They seem to have had a lot of knowledge.
yeah, I
There's a
haven't
lot of
read
knowledge
about that.
about Tony Hawk Foundation. They were talking about being in touch with them and looking
Right.
at
Oh, that's
grants
great.
and things like that. But one of the things that I'd like to suggest is Passaic River Park off of River Road is highly underutilized. There is a huge macadam area there that was a parking lot. If you drive back through there, there's a field on one side, and there is a very, very large parking lot, like abnormally large. You'll be surprised.
I think I have seen that.
And we taught our kids to ride their bikes there because we lived down the street on River Road.
Right.
And that's disturbed land. That's impervious surface. So I think when they originally, I think there might have been some talks at some point in time with that park there,
Okay.
because I don't know who
Is it
uses
county?
that.
Is it Morris
It's
County?
county, yeah. I don't know who uses that park.
Okay.
Our rec doesn't use that park. And whenever we were there for the 6 years that we lived there, we would go and ride bikes, and there was nobody there. So I read with interest a lot of grants that are given at the Morris County level for recreational facilities, for water parks, for playgrounds, for open spaces. I think that this would be something that would be terrific. It would fit right into their wheelhouse in terms of it being a regional usage. It is a underused, underdeveloped, hasn't been touched in probably more than 30 years.
That's great. Would the township committee be in discussions with the county with regard to that?
We would ask to form probably a skate park, an ad hoc skate park committee.
Well, don't we already
Because
have people?
there would need to be grant writing, there would need to be a
Okay.
kind of proposal to the, so that's the way it functioned
Okay.
with, what?
That was all private, those were all private people. Those were all concerned parents, I think.
Those
We're
were-
not
it
going to
was a-
solve for it tonight, and I'm sure
Yeah.
these are part of Bob's conversations.
Yeah, I
with
think the
municipalities
question
and
began with,
others.
are there sites that are still alive?
Are there sites still
And I
alive?
think the
Yes.
answer is yes.
Yes.
I think
It's
Tracy
been going off a
adds
tangent.
another one, and I think it's
But I
still,
think that's a great venue, I honestly
great.
do, because they're looking for regional
Okay.
Sure.
recreational opportunities.
That's great.
And I think that that's something that should be really pursued, but I won't belabor this, Mike, but to everyone's point, Suzanne Bonamo, Mary Carnes put together a whole group of people, raised, I'm going to say, 85% of the money for the skate park. I'd have to go back and look at my notes at the time, but the land was donated by the township. They also raised 1 year of repair costs, and that all was donated to the township
Okay.
in paying for the structure. The township put in the labor for the macadam, for the construction, helped with the construction, and that was basically it. So I would encourage you to get a group together and let's, put our heads together.
Thank you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jennifer McNally, 19 Ferndale Road. Just had a quick question, actually. I was here to ask about the skateboard park, which I think we answered a lot of the questions. I think one of the questions when Lee spoke here about partnering or looking at different people to work with on the skateboard park, and we may have asked this question before and I can't remember, is that would we ever sort of work as a community partner with a developer on part of this? Maybe they could help seed some of the money to get this going, as a community partner to move forward, to have them ingrained. They're going to be part of the affordable housing. They're going to manage that project. They're going to build Dixie Dale. It'd be sort of a nice community outreach if they would, nominal, I don't know how these things work, but if they could be some sort of a nominal participant in this sort of thing, if that would be an option. Just to lay that out there. I don't know who talks about that sort of thing, but just to go on the record asking that. And I guess in going to that, in the discussion that Dan had with the open space, do we have a list anywhere of the open space, sort of the recreational space, the hiking paths? Is there a comprehensive list somewhere that you could go to?
Yes. On the website, there is an open space element to the master plan.
Okay.
It's in the process of being updated.
Okay.
It will be updated later this fall.
Okay.
Because we need to have it done before the end of the year. So it's there in a form, and it will be there in a more polished form by the end of the year.
Okay, great. Because when you talk about different locations, it's sort of some of them were mystery. So just so everybody is one place to sort of find everything. That's great to know. And then my last question is, I guess for Mr. Hoffman, very quickly, when he was talking about budget surpluses, and you said there's a percent of the surplus that we apply, so the tax rate is maintained and at a steady level. So I guess in the vagueness of that is, where do you apply that surplus to? Just sort of as a transparency in where these things go in the budget.
Well, it's applied to the municipal budget. It's applied to the annual municipal budget. So there's a percentage of surplus that's used in the construction of every budget, and that's
So across the board, not certain things.
I'm sorry?
It doesn't get bucketed towards certain things. It sort of is, it gets put back. It's not earmarked for something specifically.
Yes.
Okay. And then I guess the other thing is that you'd said, with managing the surplus, we wouldn't have to go out and borrow money like we've had in the past. Has our surplus spending in the past triggered the necessity to borrow money? From what your statement said, I was just curious out of that.
No, the township incurs debt every year to pave roads, to do things. We just, the township committee just authorized the purchase of a fire engine.
Right.
So that has to get paid for. That's not paid for out of the operating budget. That's paid for out of either short-term debt or long-term debt. So I'm not sure I follow.
Look, I was just curious because your statement was sort of vague there. So you won't have to go out and borrow money like we've had in the past. Like that was,
Well, we always borrow money, but the question is, you want to make sure that when you convert your short-term debt to longer-term debt, that you do it at the most advantageous time, so that our residents are paying the least amount of interest over time.
Right.
That's the point that I was trying to make.
Okay. I just want to clarify that. Okay, great. All right. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Sure.
Anyone else? Seeing no one, we'll close the public hearing and move to the next items on the agenda, which is the consent agenda. Greg, would you read the items?
Resolution 2019-163, trail grant application, 2019-164, payment of bills, 165, receipt of reports, 166, approving meeting minutes, 167, approving executive session minutes, 168, refunding overpayment of taxes, 169, releasing escrow balances, 170, authorizing purchase of police SUV, 171, authorizing auction of surplus equipment, 172, authorizing refund for colony yoga and water exercise, 173, authorizing purchase of live scan machine.
Can I have a motion for approval?
May I just ask for a little bit of an explanation on 163, please? The trail grant, where is the Hilltop Trail Grant? How much the application is for? Thank you.
It's the property on Hillside, on the opposite side of Dixie Dale that we own, that portion of the property. It was basically a loop, and it's a narrow gravel path that would be constructed. The majority of work is actually a lot of tree clearing, that all the trees that came down to make it accessible. The dollar amount, I believe we requested $120,000, I believe it was. I just don't recall exactly.
Is that in the realm of what it's actually going to cost, or are we going to leave any money on the
Yeah,
table?
there is a 20% contribution from the municipality. It could be in the form of soft costs or DPW contributions and other such. It doesn't have to be a cash contribution.
Thank you, John.
John, is that where the existing trail is, or it's off beyond that, right?
We're going to expand that.
Good.
Yeah. We made it as large as we could.
Perfect.
Yeah.
I had a question on 172, the yoga and water exercise refunds. The last whereas, it says, whereas the yoga and water exercises classes were canceled due to a lack of participation. I thought in Tracy's report last time it was also due to the fact there was the inability to even host the event as we had publicized it. Because it was being hosted or run during hours where there no lifeguards were there or something to that effect.
We needed to have a minimum, whether it was going to be at 7 o'clock in the morning or later in the morning, we needed to have a minimum number of residents or members sign up for both classes so that they could be run and cover the costs. We did not reach that minimum number, so.
We did for yoga.
No.
Yoga had 8 people.
We needed.
I think the water sport had 2 people.
Had 2, we needed.
Yeah, no, we couldn't run water aerobics, but we were revenue positive with, well, the cost for the instructor was less than the cost that people paid for the lessons. But the main reason that it got canceled, even though it was promoted multiple times, promoted at our open house, it had been approved, was the week after it actually went live. We were told that you couldn't use the facilities as they had been used previously. I think they were used 2 years previously for full weeks, a full week of boot camp and yoga, 2014 and 2015. But we weren't allowed to use the facility at 7 a.m. as it was used in the past.
Whatever was decided in the past, the decision this year for yoga was my decision. There was not, there were going to be other expenses that were related to having it open at 7 o'clock, and there were some other issues, but at the end of the day, the yoga classes may have covered the instructor, but it did not cover the total cost. So it was, whatever the decision is, the decision was mine. That's what I made. But the residents that signed up are entitled to have their funds back, and that's why this resolution is on the agenda.
All right, so obviously the lack of interest, again, is what it is versus...
Well, I think the item on the agenda is the return of your fees, and that's all we're really addressing right now.
Right.
I think we do
there's
have
clarification
No,
in terms
but we're talking about Colony.
Yes.
The update is already on the agenda for a future discussion.
Well,
So I
this
think
is the resolution at hand, Mike. I can ask questions about the resolution at hand. Am I incorrect, and I'm not allowed to ask questions about the resolution at hand?
is authorizing the return of money. And
Yes, and
just
I'm
trying to move
asking about the
things
third
forward.
resolution, the third whereas. And the whereas here says it's canceled due to lack of participation. And my understanding previously from Tracy's comments was it was canceled because they had the inability to host the event as publicized, i.e. at 7 o'clock in the morning.
Correct.
So my question is, for the third whereas, should it also include, in addition to the inability to host the event as publicized? Though Bob is saying, you know what, we're going to host it at 7 o'clock at night. No one would have shown up anyways because we had 8 people for yoga and 2 for the water sports.
Which is incorrect.
Well, we had 8 for yoga and 2 for the water exercise.
I'm not going to, Kurt, you asked me this question last time. It's not, I don't know why you're trying to now grandstand about it, because you're just constantly on Colony Pool.
I'm the one that wrote the resolution. The goal here is that we have residents that put money out, and we want to return their funds because the classes were not, did not occur. So that's why this is on the agenda.
This is the consent agenda. If you want an item pulled for further discussion, then pull it and vote on the consent agenda. Otherwise, I suggest you vote on the consent agenda.
Thank you, Albert.
Very good.
I think my discussion is complete. Thank you.
Okay.
Bob for explaining.
Could I have a motion for the consent agenda, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Craig?
Mrs. Ness.
Yes.
Mrs. Schwartz.
Yes.
Mr. Ritter.
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Kelly.
Yes.
Mayor Selin.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. We have several items on the agenda for discussion for possible ordinance and resolution. Number one is a commuter shuttle options. Kurt, that...
Yeah, I'll give you a brief update. Last time I spoke, I indicated that we were reconfirming with the Christ Church representatives over on Fairmount and Southern Boulevard to reconfirm that they had an interest in hosting this commuter shuttle parking lot. I had a great conversation with Pastor Jared recently. He explained that they were in favor of supporting our efforts to utilize their facility for parking. He did have concerns as it related to insurance. We've been working, communicating with Bob as well as Albert, as well as the Christ Church officials to determine whether or not the church could be a named party, I understand, under our insurance policy. And yes, they can be. I received word from the church that they also want to confirm on our end whether or not the church not only would be a named party, but that we would assume liabilities for any damages to cars or church property. So I don't know that we have an answer for that right now, but suffice to say, that's their most recent request, so we can get clarity on that. So I'll speak with Bob and we'll see what we can coordinate to make sure that they have a full comfort level as it relates to us utilizing their parking spot. Trans Options was doing an analysis of the parking lot to determine how many spots they could fit there. They estimate about 36 spots there, and then 36 spots at Shunpike, so a total of 72 spots. And then someone had in the past asked whether or not we had looked at other shuttle services. Trans Options has this relationship with State Shuttle, who gave us a quote for about $5 round trip, each way for the shuttle service. We have contacted two others. My Limo, which is an organization that utilizes or runs a shuttle on Passaic to those condos over on Passaic. They offered a quote of about $3,900 a week versus $4,000 a week. So it's a little bit less, but in that scenario, we would be required to collect the funds and be the one who's issuing passes, tickets, whatever you want to call it, to utilize the shuttle itself. And then I'd reached out to Boxcar as well, and they took a pass on this. So we have done our due diligence as it relates to finding vendors who could provide this service. I think State Shuttle, having that relationship with Trans Options, is our best option. Again, we're not looking to be in the business of running this service. We just want to offer the ability for residents to utilize the shuttle. So again, we would not have any operational control of this. It's a relationship between the residents and the shuttle service, using the church parking lot if we can confirm the insurance issues, and then Shunpike Field parking lot. In addition, while some people express concerns about $5 being too much, once we can dot our I's and cross our T's and confirm the church is in fact all on board and everything's a go, there are plans to reach out to local businesses to certainly see if they could help support underwriting this in some capacity. If it might lower the fee to $4 a ride one way, so be it, or 50 cents, whatever the case might be, it's something we would want to look into. But before even that, we have a shuttle survey that would go out. As I said last time, we had over 800 folks who had expressed an interest in the shuttle itself. Granted, it's 72 parking spots. From our own anecdotal stores, I would think that shouldn't be an issue. I think that'd be obviously less than what we actually need for the capacity of the township. That being said, we intend to put out another survey for a month or so, asking people specifically which parking lot they would prefer and then what times they would utilize the shuttle. The shuttle would be a 14-person van running back and forth. Right now, one from Christ Church, as I said, straight down Fairmont to the train station, the other one from Shunpike over to the train station itself. And I think that's all the update I have at this point.
Okay.
Can I ask you about inclement weather? Obviously, you got a county road between the parking lot and the train station, so we would be at the mercy of the county about who's going to plow the parking.
Yep.
Because one would be a private, and the Shunpike lot, I assume, is Chatham Township property. Do any of those things come into conversation, or is it still in the formative?
Well, it's still in the form. It did come up because obviously the church only utilizes their facility for the most part on the weekends. They do have someone who does plow their driveway, but one would assume or expect that the urgency of plowing their lot is not as much as it might be the county road or a township road or else, or the train station, as it were. That being said, we are trying to figure out when there is inclement weather, talking to his plow driver to see, all right, while you may traditionally come out at 10 o'clock, say, what would it take for you to come out at 5 o'clock? And the same thing for the Shunpike. Obviously, the priority is for the township roads, but again, in working with DPW, if there's a way that they could, get in there sooner than later over the course of the weather, then that would be ideal.
Actually, that's a gravel lot. Do they plow gravel lots? Do we plow gravel lots in the winter? Yeah.
Yeah, we can. There's rubber on the bottom of the plow, so you're not gonna get it.
No, not down to the asphalt, but.
Kurt, could you go through some of the costs?
Is the Township of Chatham assuming any risk, or it sounds like there's no risk to us? Is that correct, Kurt?
Are we assuming any risk? The risk we're assuming it would be via our insurance policy, which...
Okay.
Is there any cost to the township for this? Because it looks like they're looking at total ridership per day of somewhere around 70, 50, or 120, or 80, 60, and 140 people using the shuttle. So if we contract for their services...
We're not contracting.
So we're not contracting, so we provide...
The purpose of this shuttle, unlike the prior shuttle, was to keep the township completely out of spending any taxpayer dollars. The last one was a failure. This one we're hoping will not be a failure, and the idea is it's going to be a relationship between the resident and the shuttle service themselves. Now that we have what the numbers are of 72 parking spots, the question is, all right, you got a 14-person bus, is that van going to be utilized primarily from 6 to 6:30, or is it going to be the later the hours? So once we have a better idea of when people are going to be utilizing this, working with TransOptions and the state shuttle, we can get more details.
So we're not collecting money?
We're not.
They're collecting the fares when
Yep.
people get on
Correct.
the bus?
And it would be a first come, first served basis. We're not, again, trying to stay out of the mix. Certainly we could do something on community. We could do this, but the idea here is trying to see if we can solve for this so the relationship, again, is between the resident and the shuttle service, where the township would not have to incur any costs.
Then I suppose the township would probably not be involved in a business decision of whether it was profitable or not profitable. You're not going to see a company just continue to run it if it's not working.
But again, the demand on paper seems to be there. The second survey hopefully will show greater clarity when people put their name and their email and their address, and it's requiring, a little bit more, rather than yes, yes, yes,
Do you plan to go back to the 300 people who did provide their information?
We're going to go back out to everyone who took the survey previously and publicize it, put it on the website as well. Typhoon, did you have a question?
Yeah, it's a simple question, though. Maybe you cannot answer this, but at some point, let's assume the worst case scenario. By the way, I hope this works. This is, I think, great service to the township people. But let's say during the service, and there's an accident and someone's injured or something happened, and can that person sue the township? So even if we're not in the deal, we're just in the deal of the parking lot, we're additionally insured. my understanding.
My understanding, if you get in the shuttle gets into an accident, you're covered by the shuttle's insurance. If you're at the Shunpike parking lot, you slip and fall, whether you're on the shuttle or you're at the skate park or you're at any other municipal property, our insurance covers that incident. And that's basically the reason why you have insurance.
Okay, so the next step is to reach out to
Next step is
touch base.
final confirmation with the church that all the insurance things are in order. If that's the case and it's a true go, then we do the survey to reconfirm that the 800 people who had expressed interest previously, that is a true commitment and interest on their part.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Second item on, for just under discussion, financial plan recommendations. Bob, if you would.
All right, thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. We had started to touch on this before during the 2019 budget overview, but before the September 12th Township Committee meeting, the governing body or the Township Committee will receive a document from me which will outline a proposed financial policy and plan for the Township's consideration that basically is an expansion on the surplus usage resolution that has been adopted in the past by the Township Committee. So the 6 key goals would be that we take the necessary actions to protect our AAA credit rating. That's embedded in both. And then we would evaluate the fund balance policy biannually to ensure that it can be used to invest in future needs as well as mitigate and stabilize the amount to be raised by taxation. So that means we're doing our forecasts and we're looking to say, all right, what are our known costs? Are there any unfunded mandates that are coming down the road? What are some of the items that the township may have to have funds available for? So that's part of it. And then we want to ensure that the fund balance is equal to 10 to 15% of our total expenditures. This is already something that's embedded in our budget process that goes back to at least 2015. And then fund balance expenditures may be increased above the 15% of expenditures when the township becomes aware of future significant expenses. So whatever that could be. So that could be the after effects of a storm like the microburst that happened in June, or Superstorm Sandy, or something to that effect. And then we want to be able to prepare a cost-benefit analysis to determine what is the best method to pay down long-term debt while keeping our long-term municipal tax rate per capita as low as possible. So in the past, the Township Committee has had discussions about should the open space tax stay at 2 cents, or should it be reduced to 1 cent? And 1 cent on our 2019 budget or tax rate is about $320,000. It's actually $322,000. So does it make sense to leave that at 1 cent, or if we go to 2 cents, would that allow us to pay off the open space loan faster? And then does that mean our taxpayers will save money further down the road? So that would be an example of that. And then we have I want to be able to go out 40 years just to look at our our notes, our bonds, the long-term debts that we have. And most of them are in the 25 to 30 year category, but there are some that you can go out 40 years. So does that make sense if we go out 40 years? Does that, what does that do? Does that keep our payments down? Does that mean we can pay off some other debt quicker? So those are some of the fundamentals that we would get into when we look at some of this data-driven information. And then, if we do that, there might be some debt that we can pay off. Then we would be able to save 15 years of interest payments when you look down the road. So that keeps things stable. And then ultimately, our goal is, you know, over 25-year period, is there a way that we can, you know, invest in our infrastructure, use technology, you know, invest in technology as well, but also reduce the percentage of our long-term debt and keep that as low as possible. So those are some of the fundamentals that, you know, that the governing body will receive. And our goal is just to make sure that we are saving for the investments that we need to make in the future, both for our capital infrastructure and then our overall operating expenses, because 15 years ago we didn't have cell phones, and basically that we use in government. Now they're taken for granted. That's part of our operating budget. But there's licenses that we have to pay for software. There are other things that are coming down the road, and we don't want to be caught short. So we want to do as much prudent planning as possible, and we want to protect all of our resources, financial and otherwise, so that it's available when it's needed. We want to protect it for a rainy day. So that's in the interest of time, because we do have to go back into closed session about another matter. That's the overview of the financial policy and a financial plan.
Thank you, Bob. I think the budget is one of the most important things we do all year. I think it sounds like this is a deeper dive into the strategic thinking at the start of the process, instead of waiting until the end of the process to present it and discuss it when things are at the 11th hour already. So
It is, and it's looking forward during the budget, during the whole year, not just the budget process, but it's looking ahead 5 years, 6 years, you know, and it's, I apologize for using the audible pause, you know, but it's looking ahead, and it's making sure that the Township Committee has a strategic overview and has the resources that are available to meet whatever those needs are going to be.
I just have a quick question, Bob, because we've been discussing this in the Finance Committee about doing this long-range planning and looking at our interest payments. We know we have this $915,000 interest payment coming up in 2 years, and you mentioned that we need to, just for that alone, increase taxes by 2 cents in order to be able to pay it off in the long term next year. Is that an increase of 2 cents in just the open space portion of it, or is it total debt so that the rate would need to increase 2 cents across the board?
We're looking at a significant increase in our long-term costs. I believe it's in 2022 or the beginning of 2023. So there are several ways that we can handle it. Before that happens, we would go out to long-term debt. We would refinance our current bands, and we would refinance some of our other long-term debt. The goal is to see what we have that we can pay off ahead of time, so that we don't have to refinance some of our shorter-term debt that would be paid off in, say, 2023, 2024, because that doesn't make sense. So you're asking a question is, your question is, would a 2 cent increase be prudent specifically to pay down long-term debt? I think that's what I heard.
Yeah, when we discussed in the Finance Committee, that was your recommendation. So I just wanted to know whether it was open space at 2 cents, or whether it was because you mentioned open space. I didn't know if all of the $915,000 or all of the debt that we had was based on our open space borrowing, or if the recommendation was just 2%.
Open space is a portion of our long-term debt, and that's one of the loans that can be paid off in fairly short order. I'm not prepared to sit here and say that we need, that I'm recommending that we have a specific, a specific dollar amount of a tax increase to pay off long-term debt. But that's something that's going to be evaluated in, in looking at at what is our debt, what is our 2% cap, how do we, and how do we look at our long-term debt? Because one of the options, that's an option, but we are also going to have to refinance our long-term debt. So, this is part of the evaluation process.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Any other questions? Next item on the agenda is our organizational chart. Oh.
Yes, this is, the Township Committee received an organization chart, so it's, this is a work in progress. When you have the opportunity, please look at it. You can make any comments and get back to us, but this is just something that, it's based on a review of the municipal code. It's based on some of our statutes, and it's trying to cull down many items onto one page. So the initial pass was way too large, with way too many boxes, and it would not be of use. But your input into this is appreciated, and eventually we will put this out.
Thank you, Bob. And last but not least, Pocket Park easements.
There's thanks to the work of our DPW, we have a list of 13 different pocket parks and then easements. And the purpose of this listing is to look. These are areas that are maintained by our DPW. Some of them are maintained better than others due to our differing needs. But this is something that I will give to our liaison, but I will also make copies for the whole Township Committee so we can look at. But the ultimate goal is to look at these and then to use them for maybe adopt-a spots, so that we would be able to have community organizations or landscapers or whatever businesses want to adopt these spots. They can maintain them. We would be able to give them a sign through our Clean Communities program that the spot is maintained by LeConte and Hoffman or whatever it would be, and this would just this is a way to leverage the love of Chatham, but also redeploy some of our resources so that we can clean catch basins and do other things as well.
There are obviously some that need more attention than others,
Right.
right? There are some that are just sort of some passive wildflowers, and others that actually have structural demands, and whether it's a retaining wall here or bricks that need to be repaired or replaced in other places. You and I have actually paid visits to some of these places. So are they all going, once we get this list, do we assume that they're all going to receive some TLC at some level or another?
Well, all of these receive some TLC at one time or another. It's just we would like them to receive TLC on a more regular basis. So the answer to your question is yes. And I guess you used that reference to flowers and other things because today is the 50th anniversary of Woodstock starting.
My thoughts, exactly.
Okay.
So when it comes to structural needs, where would we be going with that? Would that be a township funded kind of thing? Or
Yeah, most
when
of
you talk
the-
about small organizations footing the bill for certain maintenance?
The structural needs would be the responsibility of the township, but the maintenance of annuals or perennials and the weeding of different areas, that would be the responsibility of whoever adopts the spot. But the investment in the infrastructure and the maintenance of it, that would have to be done by the township because of the liability.
Got it.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay. Thank you, Bob. Our second hearing of citizens is the next item on the agenda. Is anyone wish to come forward to be heard?
Jennifer McNally, 19 Ferndale Road. I just had a quick question about the commuter shuttle, which is very exciting, because I know there's a very big shortage of parking spaces at the train station, as my husband goes at 5:30 in the morning. A quick question, did we do an RFP to transportation companies for this business, or how did we go about soliciting the different firms to do the shuttle?
There was no RFP. We worked with TransOptions, who's done this for other communities and other municipalities and used their guidance. And so they had reached out to State Shuttle, a vendor that they have used for these other municipalities. When that came up last time, I had reached out individually to My Limo as well as Boxcar, two other vendors, and I explained what their reaction was.
Okay. I was just curious, because as I did the math on if we have 72 parking spaces, how would it work? Because it's a huge amount of money that we're teeing up for a shuttle company. It's about $190,000
We're not
a year.
paying anything.
No, we're not paying anything, I know. But we're going to give them, if we fill 72 spaces every day, right, it's $190,000 in business. How did we search out the shuttle company that,
TransOptions.
Right, but how do we get requests for proposals? Have we floated?
TransOptions is in the business of doing this sort of thing,
Right.
and so we relied on their guidance and expertise as it relates to shuttle carriers. As I said, they use State Shuttle, right? They've connected State Shuttle with other municipalities around New Jersey.
Right.
So again, we utilized their expertise and guidance on this. When it did come up, though, that people expressed an interest in reaching out to other vendors, I took it upon myself to do that. As I said, I reached out to My Limo and Boxcar, and they expressed their reaction to the proposal.
So now, if we're going to use the parking lots, I think we said we were going to use possibly a Chatham parking lot and the church parking lot. Well, whoever's parking lot it is, if it's not a Chatham Township parking lot, it could be somebody else, maybe it's whatever other parking lot we find, is there some sort of financial, how is that?
There's only two parking lots we're talking about. Christ Church parking lot and the Shunpike parking lot.
Right, so would they receive any fees for the parking?
There are no fees to utilize the church parking lot at this time.
That's great. So we're creating a $190,000 a year business for the shuttle company, right? Are they going to give us do we get $1, it's a round trip $10. Is there the township gets $1 per passenger a day? We created a $190,000 business.
We're
this isn't
trying
a
to
charity.
solve for the problem residents have expressed.
Right.
We're not looking to.
So we're not going to make any money off of this? Right? Shouldn't we make something?
If you want to run Jenny, you want to run a shuttle business?
Yeah.
You want to get a 50
You
person
can
van
make
and you want to submit?
$200,000 a year. I'll get up at 5 in the morning.
Yeah.
Right? But it seems as if other things we do in the town, we're trying to structure to have revenue. And this seems like something where we're providing, we're creating $200,000 revenue for a company. We're teeing it up for them.
They're
We
saying
have
it's
the
going to cost them
passengers.
$4,000 a week to run the shuttle. Right? If we go back to them and say, you know what, we want a piece of the pie, they'll say, you know what, we don't want to be a part of this. And then we're faced with the next option, which is My Limo, who can do it for $3,900 a week, but then we've got to become involved and collect the monies and figure out all the logistics, and that now becomes a tax or a cost, a fee to the township. So what we're trying to solve for here is the perennial problem of not having any parking options for township residents.
But I
And this is our best option we have on the table today.
Right, but I just say in ways of we're looking at revenue and different things, yes, this is a service to our community, this is a service to our taxpayers, but I see that we're creating a big, huge business for somebody.
And God
we
bless
try
them.
to...
God bless them.
But,
They're solving a
look
problem.
at Colony Pool, we're fighting over $12 at Colony Pool. I'm teeing up $200,000 for a company, we don't have any services here, so it's great to have a service, right?
For Colony Pool. No
Right.
taxpayers are paying for the shuttle. That's the difference.
But we're nitpicking over $12 here,
No,
but
we're
I'm
not
giving someone
nitpicking.
$200,000 of our business,
Not nitpicking. I understand where your allegiance on the day is.
No, I don't know.
here.
My
I understand
allegiance is my tax dollars. My allegiance is in Chatham
So
Township
that's
make
why
money.
That's why I'm fighting about Colony.
Yeah, we lost
And
money.
that's why we're trying to run the shuttle service
I think
here.
we've covered it. I think
But
we're just repeating
then
the same point.
the RFP is also competitive. For $200,000 in business, I think that a request for proposal out there is a formal way to do this, as we're trying to formalize things
And
with
as I said, Jen, we utilize,
Yeah.
go look into TransOptions. We've had a partnership and a relationship with TransOptions for years as basically safe routes to school and other aspects in the municipality here. Right? TransOptions isn't a fly-by-night organization.
I'm
This
sure
is their
they're-
expertise. This is what they
Right.
do. They have a relationship with hundreds of municipalities around the state.
So how do other municipalities, do they do an RFP or TransOption is the only option?
They go to TransOptions, the expert, and says, you know what, here's our problem, help us solve it.
Right, so there are no other experts in the field of this business. I mean, I'm just curious, as a taxpayer, of how we're going to use this.
As a
you know?
taxpayer, we're not going to
Yeah.
spend any money.
We're not gonna
all
make
right?
any money.
We're
Yeah.
connecting an option for people to utilize the shuttle service if they deem it appropriate, if they want to do it. If they don't, if they say $5 is too much, I'd rather walk.
Okay, and when we do the survey, now we're going to resurvey the people, are we going to have a price point survey on there? Is $5?
It's going to say, do you want to spend $5 on a one-way trip to the train station? And if 800 people come back and say yes, problem solved. If 4 people come back and say yes, all right, we'll figure something out.
Right. I was just, I was curious. It just seems like a lot of money for things, but we are being very budget conscious and being very
We were very
revenue
budget
conscious
We're
on
making
this.
sure that the township does not have to pay anything for
But
this.
we're not going to make anything. Yeah,
Okay.
that's my point.
I think, very good.
Okay,
Thank you. Anyone else? Seeing no one?
I mean, Jen, if you make a point, we could say $7 and we'll take the extra $2 and give it to the
Okay,
township.
all right.
That might be an
Discussion
option
is closed.
too. No, discussion's
Public-
not closed.
Yes, I asked for more people.
And I was
19
commenting as you were talking. Jen, if you know what, we can add, to your suggestion, I can say, you want to pay $5 or we can pay $7, 2 of which would go to the township. That might be an option. That might be an option. All right.
Okay.
Thank you for the idea, Jen.
Okay, hearing of citizens is closed. Greg, would you please read our resolution for?
Resolution 2019-P-13, resolution of the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham in the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, authorizing conference of the public, authorizing conference of the Township Committee with the public excluded. Whereas NJSA 10:4-12 of the Open Public Meetings Act permits the exclusion of the public from a meeting in certain circumstances, and whereas the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham is of the opinion that such circumstances presently exist, now therefore be it resolved by the Township Committee of the Township of Chatham, County of Morris, State of New Jersey as follows. Public shall be excluded from discussion of the specified subject matter. The general nature of the subject matter to be discussed is as follows. A, potential litigation, rolling fields, landfill. And B, personnel matter, Department of Public Works. It is anticipated that the minutes on the subject matter of the executive session will be made public upon conclusion of the matter under discussion, and in any event when appropriate, pursuant to NJSA 10:4-7 and 4-13, the committee will come back into regular session and may take further action. This resolution shall take effect immediately.
Can I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Mrs. Ness?
Yes.
Mrs. Swartz?
Yes.
Mr. Ritter?
Yep.
Deputy Mayor Kelly?
Yes.
Mayor Selin?
Yes.
We are now in executive session.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone, for coming.